Chapter 8:12. Ever since Qin Shu met Xiao Chun in the Hundred Spirits realm, Frost Python had been feeling suffocated. It was not only because of his hatred toward Xiao Chun, but also because Qin Shuru's attitude towards him had changed after he met Xiao Chun. Frost Python had always liked Qin Shuru and had been pursuing Qin Shuru. Although Qin Shuru had always been cold towards Frost Python, he would still give Frost Python some face. However, ever since Xiao Chun appeared, Qin Shuru's attitude towards him had reached the point of abhorrence, let alone coldness. In Qin Shuru's eyes, the Frost Python could already be considered an enemy. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that if Qin Shuru was stronger than the Frost Python would have been beaten up by her. All these changes made Frost Python feel disgusted, as if he had eaten a fly. At the same time, his hatred towards Xiao Chun increased day by day. As soon as he heard about Xiao Chun's appearance, Frost Python immediately rushed over with his men to teach Xiao Chun a lesson. Hearing Frost Python's words, Xiao Chun stepped forward slowly and patted Qin Shuru's shoulder lightly, indicating that she could leave it to him. Although Qin Shuru was furious, he did not say anything. He nodded and took a step back. As Qin Shuru, her thoughts were simple. She would listen to whatever Xiao Chun said. Qin Shuru obediently retreated to Xiao Chun's side. Little did she know that her actions had made Frost Python's hatred even more intense. Looking at Qin Shuru's attitude towards him and comparing it to Xiao Chun, Frost Python could not understand. He was the chosen one of the Heavenly Saints sect. How could he be inferior to Xiao Chun? Why was Qin Shuru so obedient to Xiao Chun? Filled with hatred, Frost Python said fiercely, "Xiao Chun, let's see who can save you today." As he spoke, Frost Python prepared to attack. At the same time, Xiao Chun revealed a disdainful smile and said, "I'm standing right here, but I'm afraid you don't have the guts to attack." Don't have the guts to attack? Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Frost Python was even more furious. However, just as he was about to explode with anger, Zhao's storage ring flashed, and the token given by ancient Saint Ice Lotus appeared in Zhao's hands. It was a snow-white token with an ice lotus engraved on the front. Seeing the token in Xiao Chun's hands, Frost Python's expression changed drastically. However, Xiao Chun waved the token in his hands nonchalantly and said, "What? Why aren't you attacking?" Xiao Chun was no longer by his side. Although Xiao Chun's strength was no longer the same as it was 2 years ago, there was still a gap between him and the chosen ones like Frost Python. Therefore, Xiao Chun was not stupid enough to fight Frost Python head-on. It was still the same saying. Knowing that one was no match for Frost Python, one was not brave, but stupid. Think about it. If Xiao Chun were to fight the Frost Python now, what would happen? Without a doubt, he would be completely defeated by Frost Python. Of course, he was not a match for Frost Python now, but it did not mean that he would not be a match for Frost Python in the future. Ever since Xiao Chun entered the Ancient Saints sect, the gap between him and the chosen ones had been shrinking bit by bit. This was obvious to everyone. Therefore, Xiao Chun firmly believed that Frost Python would be the one who would be defeated the next time they met. Although he was not as strong as Frost Python, Xiao Chun did not intend to let him go so easily. Anyway, he had the token given by ancient Saint Ice Lotus. Would Frost Python dare to attack him? He had enough confidence. Sure enough, after seeing the token of Ice Lotus Prime Saint, the Frost Python was stunned. Although its face was full of anger, it forcibly suppressed its impulse to attack. Instead, it looked at Xiao Chun angrily and yelled, Where did you get this token?" "Of course, it was given to me by the ancestor of your Heavenly Saints sect. Are you going to attack me or not?" "If not, I'm leaving," Xiao Chun said calmly in the face of Frost Python's angry roar. It was about to explode. To the Frost Python, Xiao Chun was just an ant that it could humiliate and knead at any time. However, this ant always made it unable to do anything to him. It had a belly full of anger, but there was nothing it could do to vent it. It was the same last time in the 100 Spirit realm. With Emperor Qing around, he could not do anything to Xiao Chun. It was the same last time. He could have beaten Xiao Chun up, but ancient Saint Ice Lotus suddenly appeared at that time. And now, the same thing happened again. Xiaoqun used some unknown method to get ancient Saint Ice Lotus to give him a token. This made Frost Python so angry that he almost vomited blood. He was defeated by Xiaoqun again and again, and it was not because of his strength. If it was because Xiaoqun was stronger than him, Frost Python might feel better. However, that was not the case at all. Frost Python's face turned red and purple. With ancient Saint Ice Lotus's token in Xiaoqun's hand, even the saints of the Heavenly Saint sect did not dare to attack him, let alone Frost Python. Seeing Frost Python standing there and trembling with anger, Xiaoqun smiled and said, "You don't dare? If that's the case, I'm leaving. Come visit the Ancient Saints sect when you have time. Come visit the Ancient Saints sect when you have time." Hearing this, Frost Python finally could not take it anymore. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted from anger. That was the only thought in Frost Python's mind before he fainted. The Holy Son of the Heavenly Saints sect was so angry that he fainted from anger because of Xiaoqun. Frost Python's lackeys hurried forward to support him. At the same time, Xiaoqun put away the token and turned to Qin Shiru. "I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. I'll wait for you in the Ancient Saints sect." With that, Xiaoqun kissed Qin Shiru's forehead. Qin Shiru blushed and nodded. Seeing this, Xiaoqun stepped into the transportation array and disappeared. Neither Qin Shiru nor Xiaoqun cared about Frost Python's life or death. As for the last sentence, Xiaoqun was not afraid that Frost Python would attack the Ancient Saint sect. It was not an exaggeration to say that even if Xiaoqun was not as strong as Frost Python, as long as he dared to step into the Ancient Saint sect, Xiaoqun had 100 ways to kill him. He was no match for Frost Python. What about Chunyu? As the first holy son of the Ancient Saints sect, it was obvious who was stronger between Chunyu and Frost Python. Therefore, as long as Frost Python stepped into the Ancient Saints sect, Xiaoqun's territory, Xiaoqun would definitely teach him a lesson that he would never forget. Even if he could not kill him, he would at least make him lose a layer of skin. He left immediately, and the Frost Python was so angry that he fainted. Soon, this matter spread throughout the Heavenly Saint sect. When the other 3 saints of the Heavenly Saint sect heard about it, they all despised the Frost Python, feeling that he had brought shame to the Heavenly Saint sect. What an idiot! Idiot! This Frost Python's IQ is low. How can I be the holy son of the Heavenly Saints sect with such an idiot? The other 3 holy sons all despised Frost Python. Poor Frost Python, he had not woken up yet. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 8:13. Han Python had been angered to the point of fainting by a prospective holy son of the Ancient Saints sect. This matter had spread like wildfire within the Heavenly Saints sect. At the same time, Han Python's prestige within the Heavenly Saints sect had been greatly reduced. Poor Frost Python. However, Xiaoqun and Qin Shiru didn't care about this at all. Qin Shiru directly returned to the cave residence of Ancient Saint Ice Lotus and began to prepare for the heritage inheritance. Xiaoqun also returned to Tianfeng City through the transmission formation and met up with Elder Master Bai. Then, the 3 of them returned to the Ancient Saints sect together. With the convenient existence of the teleportation formation, it did not take much time to travel from the Heavenly Saints sect to the Ancient Saints sect. When Xiaoqun arrived at the Ancient Saints sect, the atmosphere of the entire Ancient Saints sect was somewhat different from before. The change in atmosphere was obviously related to the opening of the heritage inheritance. Many disciples, including the half-saint deacons, were excited and nervous. After all, many disciples of the Ancient Saints sect would be able to benefit from the opening of the inheritance. This was naturally a joyous matter for many people. However, the reason why the saints of the Ancient Saints sect would open the inheritance made them feel uneasy. After all, everyone knew that the Ancient Saints sect wouldn't open the inheritance unless something big happened. Xiaoqun did feel the change in atmosphere of the Ancient Saints sect, but he didn't care too much about it. He directly returned to the first sacred palace and began to prepare for the heritage inheritance. Time passed slowly. As the opening of the heritage inheritance got closer and closer, The atmosphere in the ancient saints' sect became more and more strange. Many disciples closed their doors and didn't come out. For a time, the entire ancient saints' sect seemed to be quiet. Everyone was waiting for the opening of the heritage inheritance in the quiet atmosphere. At the same time, the higher-ups of the ancient saints' sect also calculated the list of disciples who were qualified to receive the heritage inheritance. Needless to say, Xiao Chun was definitely on the list. Moreover, because of Randang Kozai's high regard, Xiao Chun enjoyed the treatment of a chosen holy son this time. In addition to Xiao Chun, there was another thing to be happy about. That was, Gu Mu and the others were not disciples of the ancient saints sect, but the disciples of the subsect were fortunate enough to obtain the heritage of the ancient saints sect. Gu Mu, Feng Ye, and the others had all received the opportunity to learn the ancient sacred sect's heritage. Of course, what they had received was the lowest level heritage. It couldn't be compared to what Xiao Chun had received. Of course, even so, it was enough to make them extremely excited. As the day approached, Gu Mu, Feng Ye, Wang Zong, and the other top disciples of the subsects also arrived at the ancient sacred sect and were arranged to stay together. On this day, Gu Mu and Feng Ye came together to visit Xiao Chun. After learning that the two of them also received the opportunity to receive the heritage inheritance, Xiao Chun was naturally happy for them. The three of them sat in the courtyard and chatted. During this time, Wang Zong also took the initiative to pay a visit. After mutual introductions, everyone quickly became familiar with each other. Brother Xiao, the ancient sacred sect saints have opened the heritage inheritance. Something big must have happened. As the prospective holy son, have you heard any news? Wang Zong asked while chatting. Naturally, they had all guessed what had happened. However, until now, the saints had not revealed any information. Therefore, Wang Zong had not guessed it. He originally thought that Xiao Chun, as the prospective holy son of the ancient sacred sect, should know some inside information. However, after hearing this, Xiao Chun shook his head and said, I don't know. The saint sovereigns also didn't say anything. However, I feel that we don't need to worry too much about these things. For now, we should seize the heritage inheritance this time and do our best to improve our strength. Only by improving our strength can we have the strength to protect ourselves no matter what happens next. You should know that every time we improve our strength, our ability to protect ourselves will be stronger. Moreover, I think that when the time comes, the saints should tell us the whole story. There was no need to guess what had happened. Right now, everyone only needed to consider one problem. That was to improve their strength as quickly as possible. No matter what happened next, strength was indispensable. Moreover, the more strength they had, the more chances they had to survive. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Gu Mu nodded and said, Brother Xiao Chun is right. Instead of thinking about random things, it's better to calm down and properly prepare for the heritage inheritance. Since we are fortunate enough to obtain the heritage inheritance, we can't waste it. Yes, that's right. Hearing this, Feng Ye and Wang Zong both nodded in agreement. No longer thinking about other things, Xiao Chun spent the next few days either cultivating or gathering with Feng Ye, Wang Zong, and other familiar people. Of course, during this period, Qinyu also looked for Xiao Chun. However, he did not say anything. He only told Xiao Chun to seize the opportunity of the heritage inheritance. Everyone was waiting for the heritage inheritance to open. It could be said that in everyone's eagerness, the day of the heritage inheritance's opening finally arrived. It was a morning that was no different from any other day. However, when the sun shone on the ground, the disciples of the ancient sacred sect all rushed towards the sacred palace. Regardless of whether they had the opportunity to obtain the heritage inheritance or not, when all the disciples rushed into the sacred palace, the huge square outside the sacred palace was soon filled with people. Of course, those disciples who were lucky enough to obtain the heritage inheritance stood alone in the center of the square. The other disciples gathered around the square and looked at everyone enviously. After all, there were only a few people who could obtain the heritage inheritance. They stood together with Wang Zong, Feng Ye, and the others. After waiting for about an hour, the figures of saints appeared in the sky one after another. Other than Randang Kozii, all the saints of the ancient sacred sect appeared in the sky. This was the first time that the disciples had seen so many saints gathered together. Moreover, they had all descended in their original bodies. When everyone appeared, they naturally quieted down. Then, Saint Huiyun said indifferently, "Those who have obtained the quota, gather at the Myriad World Palace. As for the others, disperse." The heritage inheritance was a separate small world. However, it contained the heritage that the ancient sacred sect had accumulated over thousands of years. Everyone headed towards the Myriad World Palace. At that time, Randang Kozii would open the heritage inheritance world. At that time, everyone would enter according to the arrangements and be able to obtain the heritage inheritance of the ancient sacred sect. According to the orders of the saints, Xiao Chun and the other disciples who had obtained the heritage inheritance came to the Myriad World Palace. At the same time, the other saints also appeared. As usual, Saint Huiyun stood up and began to announce the rules of the heritage inheritance period. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 814. In the entire ancient sacred sect, there were a total of 480 people who were qualified to receive the heritage inheritance. These 480 people were also divided into different grades and ranks. For example, Xiao Chun had the treatment of a holy son, so the heritage he received was almost no different from that of the saints. Under Saint Huiyun's announcement, everyone nodded respectfully. Then, Randang Kozii opened the entrance to the heritage world. A light door appeared in front of everyone, and under the guidance of the saints, everyone entered this small world. This small world was not very large, and its structure was very simple. There was only a very huge black mountain. This black mountain was where the heritage of the ancient sacred sect was located. From a foot of the mountain to the top, one could see many caves. There were exactly 480 caves, and each cave represented a heritage. Of course, from the foot of the mountain to the peak, the deeper one went, the more caves there would be. Of course, the heritage within would also be weaker. According to the difference in rank, those core disciples and personal disciples could only get the caves below the mountainside. Of course, this was enough for them to be excited. As for Xiao Chun and the others, the prospective saints were allowed to stay in the caves near the mountainside, while the saints were allowed to stay in the caves at the top of the mountain. According to the arrangement of the caves, the disciples entered their own caves one after another. Soon, the caves at the mountainside were allocated, and at this time, only Xiao Chun, the holy sons, and the saints were left. Everyone climbed all the way to the mountainside, and then the holy sons took the lead to enter their caves. Then Xiao Chun, Cheng Yu, and the other holy sons, as well as the saints, entered their own caves one after another. As soon as they entered the cave, there were many talismans on the rock walls. At the same time, in the center of the cave, there was a golden futon. Don't underestimate this golden futon. It was definitely a treasure that could make all the warriors on the Tiana continent go crazy. After looking around, Xiao Chun found that the layout of the cave was very simple. Except for the golden futon and the talismans on the rock walls, there was nothing else. Just a golden praying mat was the heritage of the ancient sacred sect? Of course, that was not the case. He slowly walked over to the golden praying mat and sat down cross-legged. Just as Xiao Chun sat on the cattail hassock, a beam of golden light descended from above, shrouding Xiao Chun in an instant. Enveloped by the golden light, Xiao Chun could feel an enormous amount of pure energy gushing into his body. Xiao Chun's cultivation began to rise rapidly under the assault of this powerful energy, as if he had been forcibly imbued with it. At the same time, in addition to this energy, the golden light seemed to be constantly imbuing Xiao Chun with his understanding of martial arts. This was the heritage of the ancient sacred sect. It was the heritage of the ancient sacred sect that was accumulated bit by the ancestors of the ancient sacred sect. Within this golden light, there was not only a vast amount of pure energy, But there was also the comprehension of the martial Tao left behind by the previous generations of the ancient saint sect. With this two-pronged approach, those who receive the inheritance would be able to break through their cultivation realms even faster without any side effects. It was indeed a very terrifying power, but it should be known that after this heritage was opened, the ancient sacred sect would not have any heritage for at least the next few thousand years. They would have to slowly accumulate it from the beginning. Xiaoqin closed his eyes tightly. He didn't need to do anything. His cultivation naturally began to rise continuously. At the same time, his comprehension of the martial Tao was also constantly deepening. Not only Xiaoqin, but the others were also the same at this time. However, except for Xiaoqin, the holy sons, and the various saints, the others received the silver light. Obviously, it was not as good as the golden light of Xiaoqin and the others. When everyone began to receive the heritage, Randang Kozii left the ancient sacred sect. He didn't receive the heritage because it was useless. Randang Kozii's cultivation had already reached the peak of the sage, accomplished realm. If he wanted to break through, he couldn't rely on spirit chi to succeed. It could be said that no matter how much Randang Kozii cultivated, it was impossible for him to break through to the quasi-saint realm. Only by obtaining the source energy could Randang Kozii advance further. Unfortunately, the source energy of the Sky River continent had been exhausted. Therefore, Randang Kozii didn't receive the heritage. To receive the heritage, it would take a long time. It would take at least a year. While everyone was receiving the heritage, another shocking thing happened in the Sky River continent. That was, the Sacredine sect chose to completely seal off the Sacredine province. All the connections between the Sacredine province and the other 3 provinces were cut off. All the transmission arrays in the Sacredine sect's territory that led to the other 3 provinces were destroyed. Moreover, the cultivators of the other 3 provinces were prohibited from entering the Sacredine province. This action of the Sacredine sect naturally made all the cultivators of the Sky River continent puzzled. At the same time, many people faintly sensed that a storm was coming. They chose to completely cut off all connections with the outside world. As such, the people of the other 3 provinces naturally didn't know about the Sacredine sect. Regarding this action of the Sacredine sect, the ancient sacred sect, the Sky sacred sect, and the Sun sacred sect also chose to ignore it and didn't do anything. Of course, Randang Kozii and the others naturally knew the reason for this action of the Sacredine sect. Since they couldn't destroy the blood door, the only thing Randang Kozii and the others could do was to prepare actively and do their best to deal with the invasion of the demon race. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. The Sky River continent once again fell into a short period of peace. However, this kind of peace felt like the calm before the storm. Although nothing had happened yet, the atmosphere of the Sky River continent had unknowingly become more and more tense. Under this quiet and oppressive atmosphere, the heritage of the 3 major divine sects ended one after another. On the side of the ancient sacred sect, the first to end their heritage were the core disciples and personal disciples. The heritage they had received wasn't much to begin with. Therefore, the duration of their heritage was naturally shorter. In a year's time, the personal disciples and core disciples ended their heritage. After a year, the progress of these disciples had shocked everyone. Even the weakest one had at least increased his cultivation by 1 major realm. Moreover, it wasn't just the increase in cultivation. The disciples had also made considerable progress in other aspects. It could be seen that a year of heritage had caused a qualitative change to the disciples. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 8:15. In a short span of a single year, all of these core disciples and direct disciples who were fortunate enough to obtain the inheritance had undergone tremendous changes. Following their appearance, the entire ancient sacred sect was in an uproar. Many disciples were filled with envy in their hearts. A foundation inheritance was at least equivalent to 10 years of hard work, and this was only the lowest level of foundation inheritance. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the foundation inheritance of the prospective Holy Son and Holy Son would be. At the very least, it would be much stronger than theirs. They were completely envious to the bone. Regarding this, while these personal disciples and core disciples were secretly excited, they were also envious of the prospective Holy Sons and Holy Sons. There was nothing they could do. Comparing goods with goods would result in throwing them away, and comparing people with people would result in death. In the eyes of the ordinary disciples, they were already considered very lucky people. However, compared to the prospective Holy Son and the Holy Son, the benefits that they had obtained were not considered much. After the first batch of personal disciples and core disciples finished their heritage inheritances, the prospective Holy Sons also finished their heritage inheritances 3 months later. Du, Yi, and the other prospective saints left the small world of heritage. However, they discovered that Xiao Chun was not among them. For a moment, the four of them guessed something. Being able to become a prospective saint, they were naturally not stupid. Du Yi's face was gloomy, and his heart was filled with jealousy. Damn it, how could this guy obtain the heritage of a saint? At the same time, there was only one possibility since Xiao Chun had not come out. The saints had upgraded Xiao Chun's heritage to the level of a saint. A prospective saint had obtained the heritage of a saint. One could imagine how much importance the saints of the ancient saint sect had placed on Xiao Chun. He was not the only one who was filled with jealousy. The other 3 candidates were the same. However, jealousy was jealousy, and there was nothing they could do. Although they were candidates, they could not influence the decision of the saints, and they did not dare to raise any objections. After a year and 3 months, most of the people had finished their heritage. Only the saints and saints were still receiving their heritage. Time passed by slowly. At the same time, Xiao Chun, who was still receiving the heritage in the cave, had improved from the beginner of the Tao transformation realm to the complete of the Tao King realm in the past year. Such improvement could only be described as terrifying. Even Xiao Chun didn't expect that he would be able to advance by 1 major realm and 4 minor realms. Including the 2 years he had spent in the 100 Spirit world, Xiao Chun had advanced from the Tao Gate realm to the Tao King realm in just 3 years and 3 months. No one would believe it if they had not witnessed it with their own eyes. Of course, it was naturally difficult to accept the increase of 1 major realm and 4 minor realms under normal circumstances. However, with the help of the inheritance, it was not impossible. After all, this was the foundation that the ancient saint sect had accumulated over thousands of years. If they couldn't even make such a small improvement, then the so-called foundation inheritance would be useless. Moreover, Xiao Chun was not the only one who had such a huge improvement this time. All the disciples who received the heritage had at least improved by 1 major realm. In this way, Xiao Chun's improvement was not so exaggerated. When Xiao Chun's cultivation base had completely stabilized at the great perfection of the Tao King realm, the inheritance of the saints, Chun Yu, and the other saints had also ended. At this point, the inheritance of the ancient sacred sect had already lasted for 1.5 years. However, even though Chun Yu and the others had finished passing on their heritage, Xiao Chun still did not come out. He sat cross-legged in the cave. Not only did the golden light that shrouded Xiao Chun not disappear, but it even became more intense at this moment. Everyone had finished their heritage except for Xiao Chun. Knowing this, the saints knew that Randang Kozai was giving Xiao Chun preferential treatment. He was gathering the last bit of heritage on Xiao Chun, hoping that he could make further progress. Master really does favor this kid, Saint Hui Yun chuckled in the sacred hall. After this inheritance, this brat should be able to aim for the position of the Holy Son, right? Hearing this, Saint Qing Ju smiled and added, "Perhaps that's exactly what Master thinks. That's why he's giving him special treatment. After all, the other saints are far too ahead of him. If he doesn't receive special treatment, it'll be very difficult for him to catch up to the other saints." Saint Tianfeng smiled. "From the looks of it, our ancient sacred sect will have 1 less quasi-holy son and 1 more holy son." Saint Kuangli smiled. All the saints could guess what Randang Kozai was thinking. There was nothing wrong with that. The reason why Randang Cozy Eye was giving Shao Chun special treatment was so that Shao Chun could catch up to the other saints as soon as possible. On the one hand, it would be more useful in the upcoming battle. On the other hand, it would give Shao Chun more power to protect himself in the upcoming battle. Only Shao Chun was still receiving the heritage in the miniature world of heritage. At the same time, Randang Cozy Eye stood proudly on the peak of the mountain. He looked at the cave where Shao Chun was in with a complicated expression. I never thought that this kid would be Shao Shung's junior. Whatever, I'll give you the last bit of heritage. It's useless to keep it anyway. If we can't stop the invasion of the demon race, it'll be useless. Why don't I give it all to you? Randang Cozy Eye had left the Ancient Saints sect to go to the Heavenly Saints sect. There, he saw Shao Shung and learned about the relationship between Shao Shung and Shao Chun. He didn't expect that Shao Shung still had a wisp of remnant soul left in the world, and now it was possible for him to be resurrected. This time, Randang Cozy Eye went to the Heavenly Saint sect at the request of the Ice Lotus Ancient Saint to deliver a treasure of the Ancient Saints sect to Shao Shung. This treasure was also the key to Shao Shung's resurrection. At this time, Shao Shung was refining the two treasures, one from the Heavenly Saints sect and the other from the Ancient Saints sect. As long as he succeeded in refining them, Shao Shung could completely make up for his remnant soul and transform it into a complete soul. Then he could start to rebuild his body. Shao Shung's matter made Randang Cozy Eye very happy. After all, if Shao Shung could be successfully resurrected, then the Sky River continent would have another ancestor-level saint, and he would be the strongest person in the saint realm. In this way, the Sky River continent would have more confidence in facing the demon race. It was also because of this reason that Randang Cozy Eye didn't hesitate to give the treasure of the Ancient Saints sect to Shao Shung, helping him to successfully resurrect. Unaware of these things, Shao Chun was still receiving the heritage inheritance. This time, the heritage inheritance was much richer than before. His cultivation, which had been gradually immersed, also showed signs of a breakthrough. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 8:16. He gave Shao Chun special treatment, and with the help of the Foundation inheritance, Shao Chun's cultivation, which had been gradually stagnating, had reached the limit again. He had already reached the peak of the Tao King realm, and if he broke through again, he would reach the Tao Master realm. If he succeeded, it meant that Shao Chun had advanced by 2 realms from the Foundation inheritance. What kind of concept was this? It should be known that even holy sons like Chun Yu had not been able to break through 2 realms. Of course, with the cultivation of holy sons like Chun Yu, no matter how heaven-defying the Foundation inheritance was, it was impossible for them to break through too much. After all, the further they advanced, the more difficult it was to break through and the more spiritual power they needed to break through. Therefore, although the Foundation inheritance Chun Yu and the other holy sons had obtained was no different from that of saints, in terms of cultivation improvement, they were actually not as good as the personal and core disciples. With the same amount of spiritual power, Chun Yu and the others could only break through 1 small realm, but the personal and core disciples could break through 2 or even 3 small realms. In this way, it was not surprising. The saints were even more exaggerated. They had also obtained the Foundation inheritance, but more than half of them had only broken through 1 small realm. It was even more difficult to break through after reaching the saint realm. As for Shao Chun, he was a variable. First of all, Shao Chun's cultivation was much lower than that of the holy sons. When he received the Foundation inheritance, Shao Chun's cultivation was actually similar to that of a holy son's. However, Shao Chun had obtained the Foundation inheritance at the level of a holy son. In addition, with the special care of Randang Cozy Eye, Shao Chun was able to make such great progress. He directly broke through from the beginner Tao transformation realm to the peak of the Tao King realm, and was still breaking through to the beginner Tao Master realm. Everyone had finished the Foundation inheritance except for Shao Chun. At the same time, the Foundation inheritance of the ancient sacred sect not only improved cultivation, but also had a great effect on the body and soul. Of course, it was unrealistic to rely on this heritage to break through the tempered battle body. This was because every level of the tempered battle body had rigid requirements. For example, to break through from the first level of the golden armor realm to the second level of the jade organs realm, one had to undergo the baptism of heavenly fire. Without the baptism of the heavenly fire, no matter how strong the body was, it was impossible to break through to the second level of the jade organs realm. Therefore, Shao Chun did not have much hope for the breakthrough of the tempered battle body. Randa and Cozy Eye's care for Shao Chun made some saints jealous. All the saints thought that Randa and Cozy Eye would definitely accept Shao Chun as his disciple. However, no one knew that Randa and Cozy Eye had already given up on this idea. It was because of Shao Sheng. Since Shao Chun was Shao Sheng's junior and was personally taught by Shao Sheng, Randa and Cozy Eye naturally gave up on the idea of accepting Shao Chun as his disciple. He also admitted that it would be better for Shao Sheng to teach Shao Chun. This was because if Shao Sheng's strength recovered, Randa and Cozy Eye would not be a match for him. Therefore, it was probably the best choice to let Shao Chun follow Shao Sheng. Although he gave up the idea of accepting Shao Chun as his disciple, Randa and Cozy Eye still spared no effort to support Shao Chun. Time passed day by day. After everyone had completed the heritage inheritance, another half a year had passed. In this way, it had been 2 years since the heritage inheritance was opened. After 2 years, Shao Chun had completed his heritage inheritance. His body and soul had been greatly strengthened. At the same time, his cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes. He had directly broken through from the beginner Dao transformation realm to the beginner Dao master realm, which was 2 whole realms. The golden light slowly disappeared. When Shao Chun opened his eyes, he felt as if he was in a dream. Advancing 2 major realms in 2 years was something that was simply unimaginable even in his dreams. Just think about it. In the Tianqian continent, the super experts of the Dao Master realm were the top figures of the major sections. For example, in the 9-Cloud Palace, the super experts of the Dao Master realm were the peak masters of the various peaks. Now, Shao Chun had broken through to the Dao Master realm at such a young age. If this was in the Tianqian continent, it would probably be a legend. Of course, to be able to break through to the Dao Master realm so quickly, it was all thanks to the cultivation environment of the Tiana continent and the heritage inheritance of the ancient sacred sect. It was no exaggeration to say that this heritage inheritance had saved Shao Chun at least 20 years of bitter cultivation. It could be seen how important opportunities were on the path of cultivation. This was also why it was impossible for any cultivator to cultivate behind closed doors. Instead, they would constantly go out and travel, because only by going out would one be able to encounter one's own opportunities. While blindly cultivating behind closed doors, although it seemed to be painstaking, to put it bluntly, it could only be foolishly diligent and not worth advocating. Shao Chun's understanding of martial arts had deepened greatly during the period of his cultivation breakthrough and the inheritance of the heritage. Inside the golden light, there was not only pure and enormous energy, but also the understanding of martial arts that the ancestors of the ancient sacred clan had on their martial arts. These martial arts comprehensions were left behind by the special means of the ancestors of the ancient sacred sect. Through the heritage inheritance, they were instilled into Shao Chun in the most intuitive way. It was no exaggeration to say that the value of these martial arts comprehensions was not inferior to Shao Chun's cultivation breakthrough. However, it was a pity that this heritage inheritance did not contain the knowledge of martial arts. Of course, this was normal. First of all, there was no need to use the heaven-level martial arts in the heritage inheritance. As for the holy-level martial arts, even if they were instilled into Shao Chun and other disciples, it would be useless. Because their cultivation was too low, it was impossible for them to practice it successfully. At least, they had to reach the half-saint realm before they could practice the holy-level martial arts. Exhaling a mouthful of foul air, Shao Chun got up. At the same time, Randa and Cozy Eye appeared in front of Shao Chun out of thin air. This was the first time that Xiao Chun had met Randang Cozy Eye face to face. Although he did not know Randang Cozy Eye's identity, Xiao Chun still saluted respectfully. Disciple Xiao Chun greets the Holy Master. Although he did not know Randang Cozy Eye's identity, Xiao Chun guessed that he should be a saint of the ancient sacred sect. Hearing this, Randang Cozy Eye said with a smile, "I'm the ancestor of the ancient sacred sect. Little guy, you're not bad. You've broken through 2 realms in 2 years. You didn't waste this heritage inheritance. However, although your cultivation has improved, there is still a certain distance between you and the Holy Sun. You can't relax. You need to comprehend the power of law as soon as possible." Randang Cozy Eye did not conceal his identity. At the same time, he also told Xiao Chun not to be arrogant and complacent because of the rapid improvement of his cultivation. Compared to other holy sons, Xiao Chun still had some gaps. If he wanted to catch up as soon as possible, he must comprehend the power of law. The holy sons and holy daughters on the Tiana continent had a rigid condition. That was, they must comprehend the power of law before their cultivation reached the half-saint realm. This was a prerequisite for becoming a holy son or holy daughter. Of course, only by comprehending the power of law could the holy sons and holy daughters be able to fight against opponents of a higher realm and completely crush their peers. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 817. Of course, the ancient sage sect would definitely fully support Xiao Chun in comprehending the power of law. Otherwise, without the support of huge resources, it would be impossible for Xiao Chun to successfully comprehend the power of law before becoming a half-saint, even if he was talented. He was very optimistic about Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chun bowed and thanked him. Seeing this, Randang Cozy Eye smiled slightly and said, "Well, I originally planned to accept you as my disciple, but since you were Xiao Shung's junior, he will teach you." Randang Cozy Eye did not avoid anything and bluntly told him about his meeting with Xiao Shung. Hearing that Randang Cozy Eye had already met with Xiao Shung, Xiao Chun was slightly stunned, but he quickly recovered. Since Xiao Shung could meet with Randang Cozy Eye and expose his existence, it should mean that Randang Cozy Eye should be a trustworthy person. After saying a few words about Xiao Shung, Randang Cozy Eye finally said lightly, "By the way, little guy, if you have the confidence, you can challenge the first candidate, Holy Sun." Randang Cozy Eye asked Xiao Chun to challenge the first candidate, Holy Sun. Without waiting for Xiao Chun's reply, Randang Cozy Eye directly disappeared on the spot. Xiao Chun did not know what Randang Cozy Eye meant, but to be honest, he was really confident that he could get the first candidate, Holy Sun. Although there was still a certain gap between him and the holy sons and holy daughters, Xiao Chun was completely fearless in the face of the candidate holy sons and holy daughters. In fact, Xiao Chun's current strength should be between the candidate holy son and the holy sun. He was stronger than the candidate holy sun, but weaker than the holy sun. Randang Cozy Eye's inexplicable words actually had another meaning. That was, the other candidates of the ancient sage sect were now also preparing to challenge Xiao Chun. As for why, the reason was very simple. Jealousy. Just think about it. They were all prospective holy sons, and Xiao Chun was only the 5th prospective holy son. However, Xiao Chun's heritage this time was actually at the level of a holy son. Not only that, Randang Cozy Eye had even specially given Xiao Chun special treatment. How could they not be jealous? Therefore, the other 4 candidates of the ancient saint sect all wanted to challenge Xiao Chun to prove that they were stronger than Xiao Chun. This was a healthy competition within the sect. The saints of the ancient sacred sect were happy to see this, so they naturally did not stop it. Of course, the 4 prospective saints clearly did not expect Xiao Chun to gain so many benefits from the heritage inheritance this time. It could be said that he was no longer the same as he was in the past. Xiao Chun did not pay too much attention to the first prospective holy son. Now, his goal was to become a holy son. With the departure of Randang Cozy Eye, Xiao Chun also chose to leave the small world of heritage. After returning to the ancient sacred sect, the small world of heritage was immediately closed. In the next few thousand years, the small world of heritage was completely wasted. It would take at least another few thousand years of accumulation before it could be opened again. After 2 years, Shao Chen appeared again. Although Shao Chen did not deliberately do anything, it still caused a stir in the ancient sacred sect. It cannot be helped. Even the Holy Sun and the other saints had finished their heritage half a year ago. However, Shao Chen was half a year longer than them. Therefore, many disciples of the ancient sacred sect had no choice but to pay attention to him. Because many disciples had been paying close attention to Shao Chen, the moment Shao Chen appeared, the news quickly spread. All the disciples were guessing how much heritage Shao Chen had obtained this time. Of course, Shao Chen did not know and did not care about this. He directly returned to the first sacred palace. Now that his heritage had finished, Shao Chen planned to wait for the arrival of Qin Shi and see when Shao Chen could finish his business in the heavenly sacred sect. When the time came, he would go to the 100,000 fire territory of the Sacred Sun province to see if he could break through to the second level of the refined battle body, the Jade Organs realm. After that, he would return to the ancient sacred sect and comprehend the power of law according to Randang Kozii. He planned to rest for a few days and wait for the arrival of Qin Shi. However, Shao Chen's idea was obviously not going to be realized. He only rested in his cave residence for a day. Early the next morning, a young man took the initiative to visit him. The young man was called Yuan Lin. Shao Chen knew him. He was the first candidate of the ancient sacred sect. Besides Yuan Lin, Du Yi was also accompanying him. Shao Chen chose to ignore Du Yi when the two candidates came together. He looked at Yuan Lin and said with a smile, "Thank you. Welcome, senior brother Yuan Lin. What's the matter?" Shao Chen did not have much interaction with Yuan Lin, so there was no enmity between them. Therefore, Shao Chen was polite. Of course, as the first candidate, Yuan Lin had a high prestige in the ancient sacred sect. Many disciples even recognized that Yuan Lin was the only one among the candidates who had a chance to become a sacred son. He was much stronger than Du Yi. In response to Shao Chen's inquiry, Yuan Lin said indifferently, "Junior brother Shao, I heard that your heritage is at the level of a sacred son. It seems that the sacred sages think highly of you. Senior brother is not talented, so I would like to exchange a few moves with you." He did not beat around the bush and directly stated his intention. Hearing that Yuan Lin was here to challenge him, Shao Chen smiled indifferently. However, after thinking about it, he quickly understood what Yuan Lin meant. This guy was jealous of him and felt that he was not worthy of being valued by the sacred sages. Since someone took the initiative to challenge him, and it was the first candidate, Shao Chen naturally would not refuse and immediately agreed. Hearing this, Yuan Lin did not beat around the bush and directly told Shao Chen that the two of them would fight at the ancient sacred sect's martial arts practice field tomorrow. After exchanging a few simple words, Yuan Lin left with Du Yi. After the two of them left, the news of the battle between Yuan Lin and Shao Chen spread quickly. After receiving the news, Chen Yu personally came to Shao Chen's cave abode. Without waiting for Fei Mei and the other ladies to greet him, Chen Yu directly found Shao Chen and strode into the courtyard. Before Shao Chen could say anything, Chen Yu laughed loudly. "Junior brother Shao, I heard that you have a battle with Yuan Lin? Yuan Lin is not a trash like Du Yi. After receiving the heritage, his strength has risen to the great circle of the Dao King realm. You have to be careful," Chen Yu said to himself. However, before he finished, he suddenly stared at Shao Chen as if he had seen a ghost. His expression became extremely interesting. After a long while, he screamed as if someone had stepped on his tail. "Oh my God, junior brother Shao, your cultivation? What the hell?" Initially, Chen Yu was worried that Shao Chen might be too reckless. After all, Yuan Lin did not become the first candidate of the ancient sacred sect for nothing. But now, Chen Yu was completely stunned. Shao Chen's cultivation had already reached the Dao Master Realm, an increase of 2 whole realms. Only God knew how much benefit Shao Chen had received from the heritage. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 8:18. Originally, Chenyu was worried that Xiao Chan was no match for Yuan Lin. But at this moment, Chenyu felt that he was worrying for nothing. Xiao Chan had already reached the initial Tao Master Realm. It would be a piece of cake for him to defeat Yuan Lin. Chenyu had never doubted Xiao Chen's battle strength. He was even sure that Xiao Chan was not weaker than anyone in the same realm, including the Holy Sons. There were two differences between Xiao Chan and the Holy Sons. One was the power of law, and the other was the cultivation. Now, Xiao Chen's cultivation had reached the initial Tao Master Realm, which was higher than Yuan Lin's. Therefore, Yuan Lin had no chance of winning. Chenyu would never believe that Yuan Lin could defeat Xiao Chan. It was not that he looked down on Yuan Lin, but Xiao Chan was too abnormal. Moreover, his physical strength was so strong that he was not weaker than those body cultivators. What was more, Xiao Chan had condensed the 8-edged Taoist gate, while Yuan Lin's Taoist gate was only the 7-edged Taoist gate. He had an overwhelming advantage in all aspects. How could Yuan Lin win? Surprised by Xiao Chen's rapid progress, Chenyu came to his senses after a while. He came to Xiao Chan with a wry smile, sat down opposite Xiao Chan, and scolded him with a smile. I was worried for nothing. Look at you now. There should be no problem for you to defeat Yuan Lin. Chenyu forcefully swallowed all his worries back down. In the end, he could only scold with a smile. Hearing Chenyu's words, Xiao Chen also said with a smile, Senior brother Chenyu, you don't have to be like this. It's just defeating Yuan Lin. Xiao Chan did not care about defeating Yuan Lin at all. In addition to the 2 years he had spent cultivating in the 100 Spirits realm, Xiao Chen's strength had undergone earth-shaking changes in just 4 years. He had completely made up for the gap in cultivation that was once behind the Sans to Be and Sans to Be's cultivation, and had even surpassed them. Now, Xiao Chen's goal was to become a holy son. As for other things, Xiao Chan did not care too much. Perhaps this was what people meant by strength represented vision. Xiao Chen's strength was enough to crush the holy sons and holy daughters, so he naturally did not care about them anymore. Chenyu chatted with Changyu. Of course, good wine was indispensable. It was rare that Isu did not come with them, so Chenyu could drink to his heart's content. The two of them drank until late at night. Then, Xiao Chan personally sent Chenyu back to his cave. After sending Chenyu off, Xiao Chan whispered to himself, he's already at the Tao Emperor realm? Looks like there's still a big gap. This time, Xiao Chan finally saw through Chenyu's cultivation. Since Chenyu had broken through to the Tao Emperor realm, then the other 3 holy sons had probably broken through to the Tao Emperor realm as well. There was still a big gap to catch up to the holy sons. At the very least, Xiao Chan still had to work hard. Just as Randang Cozy Eye said, he could not relax. After returning to his cave, Xiao Chan had a good sleep. After cultivating continuously for 2 years, Xiao Chan planned to relax and not think about cultivation for the next few days. The night passed in silence. He did not even think about the battle with Yuan Lin, because victory was already within his grasp. The next morning, Xiao Chan was woken up by Lu Zhu. Young master, a young lady called Qin Shuru is looking for you. She seems to be a disciple of the Heavenly Saints sect. When he heard Qin Shuru, Xiao Chan shuddered and completely woke up. He originally thought that this little girl would probably only arrive in a few days. He never imagined that she would arrive today and even inform him in advance. Lu Zhu, Fei Mei, and the other 2 girls did not know Qin Shuru's identity. Soon, after a simple wash, Xiao Chen hurried to the main hall and saw Qin Shuru sitting in the main hall with a glance. She was still wearing a white dress, and her temperament was still extremely cold. Everything was normal, but her cultivation had improved greatly and had already reached the peak of the Tao Emperor realm. It seemed that ancient Saint Ice Lotus had taken special care of Qin Shuru. Otherwise, Qin Shuru would not have improved so much. The heritage of the 3 great saint sects had been opened one after another, and many disciples had improved greatly. Walking quickly into the main hall, Xiao Chan said with a smile, Shuru, why didn't you tell me you were coming? What? Did I disturb you? Well, who is young Master Xiao? Look at your maids. They are all as beautiful as fairies. It seems that I came at the wrong time, Qin Shiru said coldly. His words were filled with jealousy and a trace of resentment. It was probably because of Lu Zhu, Fei Mei, and the other two girls. The four girls did not know Qin Shiru, and naturally, Qin Shiru did not know them either. Qin Shiru was already annoyed when he was stopped by the four girls. In addition, the four girls were beautiful to begin with. Although they were not as beautiful as Qin Shiru, they were still considered first-class beauties. Therefore, it was not strange that Qin Shiru was jealous. Sensing the jealousy in Qin Shiru's words, Xiao Chun smiled embarrassedly. Then, he called out the four girls and introduced them to each other. This is my wife, Qin Shiru. She will be your madam from now on. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the four girls bowed respectfully and said, Greetings, madam. Their attitudes were very respectful. Seeing this, Xiao Chun smiled apologetically and came to Qin Shiru's side. Shiru, they're all my maids. It's nothing. Don't think too much. Come, let me introduce them to you. They will be responsible for serving you from now on. After introducing each other and coaxing them for a long time, Qin Shiru's resentment gradually dissipated. In fact, this was not a big deal. After all, the four girls were Xiao Chen's maids. It was fine as long as they talked about it. Qin Shiru walked around the cave. Although Xiao Chen's cave was not as good as ancient Saint Ice Lotus Cave, the environment was still beautiful. As they strolled and chatted, it was already noon. At this time, Elder Master Bai found Xiao Chen. He first bowed to Qin Shiru and said, Madam. Then, he looked at Xiao Chun and said, Madam, young master, it's almost time. It's time to go to the martial arts arena. Today was the day of his battle with Yuan Lin. Hearing Elder Master Bai's words, Xiao Chun looked at the time and nodded. Okay, let's go. He did not hide the fact that Qin Shiru had a battle with Yuan Lin. After briefly explaining, Xiao Chun led Qin Shiru out of the cave and rushed directly to the martial arts arena of the ancient saint sect. As soon as they left the cave, before they even walked out of the first sacred palace, Xiao Chun bumped into Chun Yu and Yi Su. Chun Yu looked at Xiao Chun and said with a smile, Let's go, junior brother Xiao. I made a special trip today to cheer you on. I'm bored. Chun Yu also wanted to watch the battle. Hearing this, Xiao Chun said helplessly, This guy was really bored. He already knew what his cultivation level was, so why did he make a special trip to watch? Please add me to your collection. Monthly vote. Recommend me. Chapter 819. As the Holy Sun, Xiao Chun had nothing to do all day long. Regarding this, Chun Yu didn't have any objections. But even if you're lazy, that's your own business and no one else can interfere. But don't always set me up. Whenever he encountered any trouble, Chun Yu's first thought would be to push it to Xiao Chun and let Xiao Chun run around and tire himself out while he hid in the ancient sacred sect to slack off and enjoy life. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's soft grumbles, Chun Yu wasn't angry. Instead, the smile on his face widened and he turned to Qin Shiru as though they were close friends. Yo, this beautiful lady must be my sister-in-law, right? Hello, my name is Chun Yu and I'm Xiao Chen's senior brother. Upon hearing Chun Yu's words, Qin Shiru blushed, but she still nodded slightly to indicate that she acknowledged her relationship with Xiao Chun. However, at this moment, Xiao Chun interjected from the side. Shiru, you don't have to care about this guy. He's the first holy son of our ancient sacred sect and is in charge of the first sacred palace. But to put it bluntly, he's just a hands-off shopkeeper. By the way, don't get too close to him. Be careful of being set up by him one day. He's just a scumbag. As the time spent with Xiao Chun and Chun Yu increased, the two of them also became more casual with their conversations. Of course, Chun Yu naturally wouldn't take Xiao Chen's jokes to heart. As expected, as soon as Xiao Chun finished his sentence, Chun Yu immediately retorted, I'm a scumbag? Junior brother Xiao Chun, you're making me very sad. Can't you see that I'm doing this for your own good? I'm doing this to train you. It's really... Sigh. I'm going to cry if I say too much. Is it for my own good, or because you're lazy? Xiao Chun replied with a chuckle. While bickering with Chun Yu out of boredom, the four of them soon arrived at the training grounds of the ancient sage sect. It was a very big martial arts arena, but it was packed with people today. Many disciples of the ancient sacred sect had gathered here for no other reason than to witness the battle between Shao Chun and Yuan Lin. The battle between the prospective saints would definitely be extremely attractive. It was rare to see such a thing on a normal day. When Shao Chun and the other three arrived, Yuan Lin was already waiting on the largest arena in the middle. Not only him, but the other three prospective saints, including Du Yi, were also present. Moreover, what Shao Chun did not expect was that Emperor Qing, Hu Fei, and the fourth saint, Jiang Yu, were all present. The prospective holy sons and holy sons were all present. Upon seeing this, Chen Yu immediately lectured Shao Chun. How is it? Am I bored now? It was not easy to find an opportunity to attack Shao Chun. Naturally, Chen Yu would not let it go. Hearing this, Shao Chun curled his lips helplessly. To be honest, even he did not expect that a battle with Yuan Lin would attract so many people's attention. Not to mention the ordinary disciples, even the four holy sons were all present. Of course, Shao Chun did not know that the four holy sons were not here for the battle itself, nor for Yuan Lin. To put it bluntly, they were here for Shao Chun alone. After receiving the heritage inheritance for 2 years, the four holy sons were very curious about how much Shao Chun's strength had grown. Therefore, they came personally to see Shao Chun's strength. They did not care about the outcome of the battle. They landed directly on the arena, while Chun Yu led Qin Shi and Yi Su to the side of the arena, standing with Emperor Qing and the other two. Oh, Emperor Qing, Hu Fei, Jiang Yu, you're here too. Come, let me introduce you. This is Shao Chun's wife, Qin Shi, an outstanding disciple of the Heavenly Saint sect. Chun Yu said enthusiastically to Emperor Qing and the other two. However, Emperor Qing and the other two ignored him completely, especially Emperor Qing, who said indifferently without giving him any face. Quiet. Among the four holy sons of the ancient saint sect, Emperor Qing was definitely a weirdo. Emperor Qing and the other two had already experienced this, so they naturally chose to ignore Chun Yu. Chun Yu did not care about their disregard. He smiled embarrassedly and then turned his eyes to the arena. Chun Yu was quiet, but when Emperor Qing and the other two looked at Shao Chun, their expressions changed. Their expressions were exactly the same as when Emperor Qing first saw Shao Chun yesterday. The beginning of the Tao Master Realm? The three of them were shocked at the same time. They thought that Shao Chun would make great progress in the past 2 years, but they did not expect that Shao Chun would make such great progress that he actually broke through to the beginning of the Tao Master Realm in one go. After the shock, Emperor Qing was the first to recover. A strange look flashed across his eyes, and he said, "It's really surprising. It seems that our ancient saint sect will have a 5th holy son soon." With that, Emperor Qing turned around and left. Seeing this, Chun Yu called out, "Hey, where are you going? The battle is about to start. The result has been decided. There's no need to watch." Hearing Chun Yu's words, Emperor Qing said without looking back. Then he disappeared from the martial arts practice field. He was as arrogant as ever. After seeing Shao Chun's identity, he left directly. Anyway, as Emperor Qing said, the result had been decided. It made no difference whether he watched or not. Emperor Qing left. At the same time, in the arena, Yuan Lin and Shao Chun looked at each other calmly. Yuan Lin took the lead and cupped his hands. "Junior brother Shao Chun, this battle is not for anything else. I just want to see why the holy sages value you so much." Yuan Lin took the initiative to challenge Shao Chun. There was no special purpose. To put it bluntly, he was unwilling to accept the result and jealous. They were all holy sons, but Shao Chun had much more resources than them. Therefore, Yuan Lin wanted to see what was so special about Shao Chun that the holy sages valued him so much. Yuan Lin said without any hesitation. Hearing this, Shao Chun smiled. Yuan Lin was actually not bad. After all, it was normal for him to be jealous and unwilling to accept the result in such a situation. At the very least, Yuan Lin did things in an open and above-board manner. He did not hold a grudge against Yi Futian because of his jealousy. He just wanted to fight Yi Futian head-on to see if Xiao Chun was worthy of being valued by all the saints. Xiao Chun naturally did not have any hostility towards people who were open and above board. Even if Yuan Lin took the initiative to challenge him this time, Xiao Chun did not think much of it. On the contrary, it made him feel that Yuan Lin was indeed a character. With a smile on his face, Xiao Chun said calmly, "Please, senior brother Yuan." The battle was about to break out. For a moment, many disciples in the martial arts practice field fixed their eyes on the arena. All the disciples wanted to see the result of the battle between the two holy sons. They wanted to see who would win and who would lose. They also wanted to see if Xiao Chun could create another miracle and take the title of the first holy son. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 820. The battle broke out. As Xiao Chun finished speaking, Yuan Lin chose to make the first move. A beam of light flashed from the storage ring in his hand, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Yuan Lin was also a sword cultivator. As he stabbed out with his sword, the tip of the sword flashed, and sword intent that had reached the small perfection level gushed out. He was indeed worthy of being ranked first among the candidates. His sword had already reached the level of small perfection, just like Xiao Chun. However, this alone was not enough to threaten Xiao Chun. Facing Yuan Lin's first attack, Xiao Chun pointed his finger and used the pure June sword finger. A golden sword ray flashed and collided with Yuan Lin's long sword. Immediately, the sword chi wreaked havoc, and an invisible wave spread out in all directions. The surrounding space seemed to be sliced apart by this violent sword chi. It was just the first collision, but the surrounding disciples could not help but exclaim, "What a strong sword intent!" Both Xiao Chun and Yuan Lin's sword wills were very strong. If it weren't for the fact that the talisman array on the ring had been activated, this simple strike would have destroyed the entire martial arts practice field in an instant. After a head-on collision, the two of them were evenly matched. Yuan Lin did not fall into a disadvantageous position either. Seeing this scene, many disciples became excited. They naturally wanted to see a fierce battle. However, only Chun Yu, Hu Fei, Jiang Yu, and the other chosens revealed faint smiles at this moment. With their eyesight, how could they not see that Xiao Chun was deliberately saving face for Yuan Lin? Otherwise, Xiao Chun could have defeated Yuan Lin in one move. Perhaps Yuan Lin's open challenge did not anger Xiao Chun, so Xiao Chun also chose to save face for Yuan Lin. Otherwise, if the news of the first candidate being defeated in one move spread, it would indeed be unpleasant. I didn't expect junior brother Xiao to be so gentle. Why are you always so fierce to me? Chen Yu said with a smile as he watched the two people fighting fiercely in the arena. Upon hearing his words, Hu Fei and Jiang Yu, who were standing at the side, were speechless. However, both of them were smart enough not to say anything. On the stage, the battle appeared to be intense. However, only a few people knew that this intensity was actually intentional by Xiao Chun. Of course, as the person involved, Yuan Lin also felt this at this moment. All this time, Xiao Chun had not even drawn his ink dragon sword, and had fought with him barehanded until now. At the same time, Yuan Lin also keenly sensed that Xiao Chun seemed to be deliberately holding back his strength since the beginning of the battle. Xiao Chun controlled his strength according to his own strength in every attack. To be able to cooperate with others to control his own strength, there could only be one explanation, and that was Xiao Chun's strength far surpassed Yuan Lin's. Otherwise, Xiao Chun would never be able to do this. Yuan Lin felt that he was being looked down upon and felt a little indignant. After swinging his sword, Yuan Lin stopped his attack and looked at Xiao Chun with an extremely serious expression. "Junior brother Xiao Chun, you are insulting me like this. Show me your true strength. Otherwise, this battle will be meaningless." Xiao Chun's deliberate concession did not make Yuan Lin feel happy at all. In fact, he even felt insulted. As the first candidate, although he was not as good as a chosen, Yuan Lin also had his own pride. Yuan Lin did not want his opponent to deliberately give in to him in a fair battle. Otherwise, he would not have taken the initiative to challenge Xiao Chun. Hearing Yuan Lin's words, Xiao Chun could guess what he was thinking. He smiled helplessly in his heart. It seemed that he had made a fool of himself by trying to be clever. He originally thought that it was a good thing to leave some face for Yuan Lin, but who knew that this would hurt his self-esteem even more? Realizing this, Xiao Chun nodded and said, "Senior brother Yuan, please forgive me. It was my fault just now. I will use my full strength for the next move. Senior brother, please be careful." "Come on," Yuan Lin replied in a deep voice. Since he already knew that his previous concession had hurt Yuan Lin's self-esteem, Xiao Chun naturally would not hold back anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura soared into the sky. Sensing this aura, Yuan Lin, Du Yi, the other candidates, and the surrounding personal disciples all changed their expressions greatly. Many people whispered in disbelief. How is this possible? The beginning of the Tao sovereign realm, Xiao Chun displayed his cultivation level without holding back. For a moment, all of the disciples were dumbfounded. At the same time, Xiao Chun also slowly pointed his finger and performed the third Tai Yi sword finger of the ninth heaven. He did not use the more lethal Ganjiang sword finger and shadow-bearing sword finger. After all, this was not a life-and-death battle, and Xiao Chun had no intention of seriously injuring Yuan Lin, so the Tai Yi sword finger was enough. Without holding anything back, a thick sword beam flashed forward. In the face of this sword beam's attack, Yuan Lin immediately sensed a terrifying power surging towards him. Even before coming into contact with it, Yuan Lin already had a feeling that he was no match for this attack. Yuan Lin had felt this feeling before, but that was when he was facing the Chosen. Now, facing Xiao Chun, he felt this feeling again. Gritting his teeth, Yuan Lin knew that he was no match for Xiao Chun, but he still chose not to back down. He wanted to find out what kind of ability Xiao Chun had to make the sages think so highly of him. With a furious roar, Yuan Lin also used his strongest martial skill. The two attacks collided, but it was not long before Yuan Lin's martial skill was torn apart by the Tai Yi sword finger. Then, Yuan Lin's entire body was swallowed by the Tai Yi sword finger. In the end, even though Yuan Lin had calmed down and used his full strength, he was still unable to stop Xiao Chun's Tai Yi sword finger. Seeing that the Tai Yi sword finger had swallowed Yuan Lin, Xiao Chun also chose to withdraw his attack. Yuan Lin's figure appeared before everyone's eyes once more. His breathing was a little rushed, and his face was a little pale. It was obvious that he had been injured by the Tai Yi sword finger. Fortunately, his injuries were not too serious. Of course, this was also the reason why Xiao Chun withdrew his attack in time. Yuan Lin looked at Xiao Chun with a complicated gaze. Although he had already guessed that Xiao Chun was very strong, he did not expect Xiao Chun to be so strong. Yuan Lin could not even withstand a single move from him. Without a doubt, if Xiao Chun had used his full strength from the start, he would have been defeated long ago. Taking a deep breath, Yuan Lin took the initiative to clasp his hands toward Xiao Chun and said, "Junior brother, I am sincerely impressed by your strength, and I accept my loss wholeheartedly. From today onwards, the title of the first candidate holy disciple will belong to none other than junior brother Xiao Chun. I believe that no one will disagree with this." Yuan Lin did not become angry because of his loss. In Yuan Lin's eyes, a loss was a loss. There was nothing else to say. However, this kind of loss did not defeat Yuan Lin. On the contrary, it ignited his fighting spirit even more. Xiao Chun's rapid improvement gave Yuan Lin a target to chase after. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 821. A loss was a loss. Yuan Lin didn't get angry because of it, and he didn't hate Xiao Chun. On the contrary, his jealousy towards Xiao Chun disappeared. In fact, Yuan Lin was a very simple person. The reason why he took the initiative to challenge Xiao Chun was because he felt that Xiao Chun wasn't qualified to get so many resources. But now, Xiao Chun proved himself with his strength, so Yuan Lin was relieved. With strength, one could get more resources. This was understandable. It was impossible for the ancient sage sect to spend most of their resources on disciples with mediocre aptitude. That would be a waste. Yuan Lin cupped his hands and bowed to Xiao Chun, then jumped down from the stage and left. Looking at Yuan Lin's back, Xiao Chun smiled slightly. This guy was a bit interesting. His character was good, and he was also straightforward. Not bad, not bad. He was worthy of his title as the first candidate Holy Son. In fact, Xiao Chun didn't think that a person like Yuan Lin, who was straightforward and upright, wasn't an exception among the Holy Sons and Holy Sons. In other words, who could become a Holy Son or Holy Son? Who would be a treacherous villain? Obviously no one. It was really strange for a treacherous villain to become a Holy Son or Holy Son, because such a person didn't have the determination and perseverance to climb the peak. Naturally, he wouldn't have great achievements. If the Holy Sons and quasi-Holy Sons of the Tiana continent were all made up of treacherous villains, then their value would be too low. If a group of narrow-minded people who only knew how to use some tricks could become the benchmark of the younger generation of the Tiana continent, then it would be really strange and inconceivable. Looking at the Holy Sons and Holy Daughters of the Tiana continent, including the Holy Sons and Holy Daughters, they might have different personalities, but they all had one thing in common, and that was they all had their own pride and perseverance. This was indispensable, and it was also a necessary condition to become a powerhouse. Yuan Lin simply left. Perhaps in the future, he would treat Xiao Chun as his target. Perhaps he would come to challenge Xiao Chun in the future, but he would never use any tricks behind his back. After Yuan Lin left, Xiao Chun leaped down from the stage and came to Qin Shiru's side. He smiled and nodded at Chun Yu, Hu Fei, and Jiang Yu before pulling Qin Shiru out of the arena. It was not until Xiao Chun left that the disciples gradually regained their senses. Soon, a series of gasps could be heard. This battle was really exciting, and at the same time, it was also beyond everyone's expectations. Who would have thought that Xiao Chun's strength would be so strong? It was simply outrageous. In front of Xiao Chun, Yuan Lin didn't have much power to fight back. After this battle, Xiao Chun could be said to have firmly sat on the throne of the first Holy Son. From today onwards, the 5 Holy Sons of the ancient sacred sect had a new ranking. Xiao Chun directly jumped from the 5th Holy Son to the 1st Holy Son, and Yuan Lin was ranked 2nd. As for the former 4th Holy Son, Du Yi, he was now the 5th Holy Son, ranked last. The person who felt the most uncomfortable about this result was naturally Du Yi. Previously, he didn't take Xiao Chun seriously, but in the blink of an eye, Xiao Chun had far surpassed him. He knew very well that from now on, he no longer had the strength to compete with Xiao Chun in the first sacred palace. As long as Xiao Chun wanted, he could beat Du Yi to the bottom at any time. Sighing softly, Du Yi left the martial arts practice field with a little disappointment. Xiao Chun didn't know about Du Yi's disappointment and despair. At this time, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru had already arrived at Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence to meet Xiao Sheng. That's right, Qin Shiru came back with Xiao Sheng this time, and Xiao Sheng directly went to Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence after arriving at the ancient sacred sect. Now that everything was settled, Xiao Chun naturally came to find Xiao Sheng to discuss the matter of going to the 100,000 Flames territory of the Sun Sacred Sect. The breakthrough of the tempered battle body was imminent, and Xiao Chun didn't want to waste any more time. Without any obstruction, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru smoothly entered Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence. It was also huge, but compared with the cave residence of Ice Lotus Ancient Saint, which seemed to have been frozen for thousands of years, Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence was much more comfortable. Looking around, it was green everywhere, full of spring. In such an environment, one's body and mind seemed to have become tranquil. Tranquil and peaceful. This was the feeling that Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence gave people. They came all the way to a bamboo forest, where Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru met Xiao Sheng. After fusing the 2 treasures of the heavenly sacred sect and the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Sheng's remnant soul had been completely repaired and formed a complete soul. It no longer looked so illusory, and, at the same time, his strength had recovered a lot. Sit. Xiao Sheng was sitting cross-legged on a futon with a short table in front of him. While making tea, Xiao Sheng said. Hearing this, Xiao Chun didn't stand on ceremony. He pulled Qin Shiru and sat directly opposite Xiao Sheng. They didn't see Randang cozy eye. Xiao Sheng personally made a cup of tea for them, then looked at Xiao Chun and smiled. It seems that you've gained a lot of benefits. Your cultivation has already reached the town master realm. Hearing this, Xiao Chun smiled and said, Yes, I've gained a lot. But Ancestor, when are we going to Yangxing State? My temper battle body is about to break through. Xiao Chun didn't deny the benefits he had gained during the heritage period, but now he was more concerned about breaking through the tempered battle body. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng smiled, but soon said with a serious face, We'll definitely go to Yangxing State, but before that, I have something to tell you. Xiao Sheng looked very serious. Seeing this, Xiao Chun also sat up straight and listened attentively to Xiao Sheng's next words. Xiao Sheng was going to tell Xiao Chun about the sacred insect and the northern demon continent. The ancestors hadn't announced this matter to the public yet, but Xiao Sheng had already told Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru about it. Without hiding or omitting anything, Xiao Sheng told Xiao Chun the truth. Hearing this, Xiao Chun frowned tightly, and his face darkened completely. Of course, the reason why Xiao Chun was like this wasn't because of the demon race's invasion or the destruction of the Sky River continent, but because he was worried about Guling Yao. Now that Guling Yao was still in the Sacredine sect, and such a thing had happened, then her safety. He didn't dare to imagine what he would do if something happened to Guling Yao. After a long silence, Xiao Chun finally said in a low and firm voice, Ancestor, I'm going to the Sacredine sect. I can't wait any longer. Things have already come to this. I can't let Ling Yao continue to stay in the Sacredine sect. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 822. Originally, when the three sacred sects opened their heritage one after another, the world had already guessed that something big was about to happen. Even Xiao Chun had thought of this problem, but he didn't expect it to be related to the demon race. But this wasn't the main point. What worried Xiao Chun the most was that this matter was related to the Sacredine sect. Or rather, it could be said that the Sacredine sect was the cause of this. It was the Sacred Een sect's ancestor who built the blood door that opened the spatial passage to the northern demon continent. Originally, he wanted to become the sacred son of the ancient sacred sect before thinking of a way to rescue Guling Yao. But now, it was obvious that he couldn't do that. Even if he became the sacred son, he couldn't rescue Guling Yao according to his previous plan. Think about it. Once the demon race invaded, the Sacredine sect would be the first to bear the brunt. At that time, if Guling Yao was in danger, what would he do? Xiao Chun wasn't a saint. In the face of the impending demon race invasion, Xiao Chun's first thought wasn't to save the world, but to rescue Guling Yao. Don't say that Xiao Chun was selfish. If a person didn't even care about his own woman, what else could he do? Even if he wanted to save the Heavenly River continent, he should at least protect the people around him first, not to mention his own woman. Also, there was still no news of his father, Xiao Qing. He wasn't in the ancient sacred continent or the heavenly sacred continent. If Xiao Qing was also in the Sacredine continent, what should he do? Were there other heavenly Chun continent cultivators in the Sacredine continent? This sudden news could be said to have completely caught Xiao Chun off guard. All his previous plans and preparations could be said to have gone up in smoke. Truly, his plans could not keep up with the changes. Who would have thought that the St. Een sect would go and open up a spatial tunnel to the northern demon mainland? This was just inviting a wolf into the house. Without any plans, Xiao Chun's first thought was to go to the Sacredine continent and rescue Guling Yao, as well as the cultivators of the heavenly Chun continent and Xiao Qing. Of course, Xiao Qing wasn't sure if he was in the Sacredine continent. Perhaps he was in the sacred Yang continent? Seeing that Xiao Chun had become agitated, Xiao Sheng had already expected this. He said in a low voice, Kid, calm down. I'm telling you this today because I want to save your little girl. He motioned for Xiao Chun to calm down. Impatience would not solve anything. Xiao Chun took a deep breath. Xiao Sheng continued. Actually, Randang Kozii and the other old ancestors had already discussed the matter with Sacredine sect. Although the whole thing was controlled by the Sacredine sect, there were hundreds of millions of humans in the Sacredine province. Naturally, not all of them would stand on the side of the Sacredine sect. Not to mention, the Sacredine sect's action was completely crazy. They wanted to destroy the heavenly river continent. Therefore, the humans in the Sacredine province would not agree. Because of this, Randang Kozii and the others were prepared to evacuate the humans in the Sacredine province to the other 3 provinces before the demon race invaded. Then, they would gather the strength of the 3 great sacred sects and destroy the Sacredine sect in one fell swoop. That's right, the 3 great sacred sects were prepared to take action. Although the Blood Gate could not be destroyed now, nor could they stop the demon race from descending, they could first eliminate the main culprit, the Sacredine sect. As for the cultivators in the Sacredine province, they were also members of the heavenly river continent. They were not lackeys of the Sacredine sect. Naturally, the 3 great sacred sects would not abandon them. However, to rescue the hundreds of millions of people in the Sacredine province, this was definitely a huge project. Even if the 3 great sacred sects gathered their strength, they would still need to make perfect preparations before they could take action. Xiao Sheng explained the plan of Randang Kozii and the other old ancestors to Xiao Chun. Of course, Xiao Sheng did not mention the specifics. In the end, Xiao Sheng said, therefore, the 3 great sacred sects did not abandon the people of the Sacredine province. We can cooperate with them and find an opportunity to rescue that little girl. At the same time, we can evacuate the cultivators of the heavenly Chun continent from the Sacredine province. If they cooperated with the 3 great sacred sects, they would have a chance to rescue Guling Yao. Hearing this, Xiao Chun fell into silence. The 3 great sacred sects had already made preparations. This way, the chances of success would naturally be much higher. However, if they wanted to rescue Guling Yao, they would definitely have to go deep into the Sacredine sect's headquarters. The degree of difficulty would naturally be higher. However, there was no other choice now. They had to rescue everyone before the demon race invaded. Otherwise, once the demon race descended, the difficulty would only increase. Moreover, it was very likely that accidents would occur. There was no other way. After a long while, Xiao Qin nodded his head in agreement. Seeing this, Xiao Sheng said, that's right. Kid, you have to know that with your strength alone, you can't change anything. If you want to rescue someone, you have to rely on the 3 great sacred sects. If they take action, even if they can't destroy the Sacredine sect, they can definitely cripple the Sacredine sect. It will be much easier to rescue that little girl. Xiao Shang's words finally gave Xiao Chun some confidence. The 3 great sacred sects were prepared to make the first move and destroy the Sacredine sect. This way, the chances of rescuing Guling Yao would be much higher. Seeing that Xiao Chun had gradually calmed down, Xiao Sheng finally said, so, don't think about anything else now. First, prepare to go to the 100,000 fire domain in the Sacred Sun province. Then, try to comprehend the power of laws. When the 3 great sacred sects are ready, we will attack the Sacred Een sect together. At that time, we will find an opportunity to rescue that little girl. In the current situation, the strength of one person was no longer enough to change the overall situation. Unless it was at the level of Randang Kozii and the others. Xiao Sheng's meaning was very clear. He wanted Xiao Chun to cooperate with the 3 great sacred sects. Of course, the most important thing now was to not waste time and work hard to increase his strength. Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun nodded. This was the only way. Listening to the conversation between Xiao Sheng and Xiao Chun, Qin Shuru did not interrupt. In the end, Xiao Sheng told Xiao Chun to prepare and leave for the Sacred Sun sect tomorrow. It would be best if he could break through the tempered battle body as soon as possible. This way, Xiao Chun would have more time to comprehend the power of laws. Xiao Chun did not have any objections to Xiao Sheng's arrangement. He knew that Xiao Sheng was right and nodded in agreement. However, Qin Shiru also wanted to go to the Sacred Sun sect this time. Anyway, there was no point for her to go back to the Sacred Sun sect, so she might as well go with Xiao Chun. Of course, this was also Qin Shiru's request. Xiao Chun did not refuse and quickly decided that Xiao Chun, Xiao Sheng, and Qin Shiru would go to the Sacred Sun sect together. They would leave tomorrow. After settling the matter, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru said goodbye. Xiao Sheng also said that he would go find the two of them tomorrow morning, and then they would leave. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 823. I was drunk yesterday, and today I woke up with a hangover. I felt dizzy as if I'd been stepped on by an elephant. Luckily, I had 2 chapters in stock. I will start with these 2 chapters today. The other 2 chapters will be added tomorrow. Brothers, please give me a day, and I will add 6 chapters tomorrow. It's going to be the new year, and there are indeed many things to do during this period. My family needs to buy New Year's goods, and many of my old classmates and friends are coming back from other places for New Year's. I haven't seen them for a year, and they often go out for a get-together. In addition to this wine, it's really not a good thing. Of course, this is my fault. I was wrong. Brothers, please forgive me. Let me rest for today, and I will add 6 chapters tomorrow. Thank you, brothers. Thank you, brothers. Let's not talk about it anymore. I'm going to lie down like a corpse. Sword Master 8 Desolations. Brothers, I was wrong. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 824. After settling the matter with Xiao Sheng, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru returned to the first sacred palace. Knowing that the demon race was about to invade the heavenly river continent, Xiao Chun naturally understood that time was of the essence and couldn't be wasted. Originally, he planned to relax with Qin Shiru in the ancient sacred sect for a few days, but now it seemed that it was impossible. After returning to his cave residence, he told Elder Master Bai, Fei Mei, and the other 3 girls about his preparations to go to the Sun Sacred Sect. Originally, Elder Master Bai planned to follow Xiao Chun and protect Xiao Chun along the way, but this time, Xiao Chun didn't agree. After making arrangements for the departure, the night passed silently. Early the next morning, Xiao Chun's group of 3 set off for the Sun Sacred Sect. They still used the transmission array, but the Sun Sacred Sect was located to the west of the ancient Sacred Sect, so they could only use the transmission array to go to the West Sea City at the border of the Sun Sacred Sect. Fortunately, because of the demon race's invasion, the 3 sacred sects had allied with each other, and cultivators from the 3 sacred sects could enter and leave at will. This saved Xiao Chun and the others a lot of trouble. Xiao Sheng was only a saint's soul and didn't have a physical body, so he was still hiding in Xiao Chun's body. Through the transmission array, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru soon appeared in the Sun Sacred Sect's territory, the West Sea City that was closest to the western border. Just like when they went to the Heaven Sacred Sect, there was also a branch of the ancient Sacred Sect in West Sea City. Of course, the Sun Sacred Sect also sent people to guard this place. After a simple inquiry and ranking, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru were allowed to enter the core area of the Sun Sacred Sect. Husband, are we going directly to the 100,000 Flames territory? Qin Shiru asked as they walked side by side on the streets of West Sea City. West Sea City was just a small city. There was nothing special about it. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded. According to Xiao Chun, they should head to the 100,000 Flames realm as soon as possible and not waste any time. However, just as the 2 of them were about to leave the city, they happened to hear some people talking on both sides of the street. The Holy Son of the Sun Saint sect is already here. Looks like we're really going to slaughter that demonic beast this time. That's right. It said that the demonic beast is extremely powerful, and it seems to be a dragon. Dragon race? That's impossible. The Dragon Clan is the royal clan of the demon beasts. There has never been a dragon clan in my Tiana continent. Everyone was whispering among themselves, and Xiao Chun was able to hear all of it. Originally, Xiao Chun had nothing to do with the fact that the Sun Saint sect's holy son had come to kill the demonic beasts. However, Xiao Chun cared about the dragon that everyone was talking about. The dragon clan was definitely an extremely rare demon beast. Hearing this, a figure immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. It was his second sister, Long Qing. The dragon clan had never appeared in the Tina continent, but now, above the endless sea outside West Sea City, a dragon had appeared. How could Xiao Chun not associate this with Long Qing? Not only Xiao Chun, but Qin Shuru's expression also changed slightly. He looked at Xiao Chun. Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was already very obvious. After exchanging a glance with Qin Shu, Xiao Chun stepped in front of these cultivators and took the initiative to ask, "Friends, what's the matter with the dragon you were talking about?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, these cultivators looked unfriendly at first, but when they saw the Holy Sun's robe that Xiao Chun was wearing, they instantly put on a smiling face and took the initiative to tell the two of them the whole story. This time, Xiao Chun didn't hide his identity. He was wearing the Holy Sun's robe of the ancient sacred sect. At a glance, they recognized that Xiao Chun was the Holy Son of the ancient sacred sect. Therefore, these people naturally didn't dare to offend him. They told Xiao Chun the truth, and the whole thing was very simple. It was said that half a month ago, someone saw a dragon above the West Sea. When this news spread, it naturally attracted the attention of many people. After all, the dragon clan was extremely rare. Even though the strength of every single dragon was extremely terrifying, they could be said to be covered in treasures. So, when they confirmed that a dragon existed above the West Sea, many cultivators of West Sea City aroused greed in their hearts and wanted to join forces to kill the dragon. Unfortunately, a few dozen people formed a group, and there were even many Dao Emperor Realm experts amongst them. However, they were still unable to kill the dragon. Conversely, more than half of them were killed by the dragon instead. Moreover, perhaps it was infuriated by their encirclement, but just a few days ago, the dragon had attacked West Sea City. The memories of that day were still fresh in the minds of the West Sea City cultivators. A giant azure dragon fell from the sky, and a dragon's roar shook the sky. The entire West Sea City was covered in a terrifying dragon's might, and in just a short period of time, a third of West Sea City was destroyed. As they spoke, these cultivators even pointed at the city in the east. Xiao Chun turned to look and saw that the entire eastern city had indeed been destroyed. There were ruins everywhere. The revenge of the Dragon Clan came very quickly, and at the same time, the Sun Saint sect also responded very quickly. According to the descriptions of the witnesses, the dragon that the Sun Saint sect withdrew from was perhaps a pure-blooded dragon. So, the Sun Saint sect sent a holy sun to West Sea City with the goal of killing the dragon. After knowing the cause and effect of the matter, Xiao Chun left with Qin Shuru. But along the way, Xiao Chun was thinking about what these cultivators had said. The Azure Dragon was most likely his second sister, Long Qing. Since it was possible that it was Long Qing and the Sun Saint sect's holy sun had already arrived in West Sea City, Xiao Chun naturally couldn't just watch as Long Qing fell into danger. Although he wasn't sure if it was true, Xiao Chun had to wait. If it was really his second sister, Long Qing, then he had to save her no matter what. Thinking of this, Xiao Chun secretly said to Xiao Sheng, "Old ancestor, I can't leave West Sea City for the time being." "What? Is it because of that dragon?" Hearing this, Xiao Sheng quickly guessed Xiao Chen's thoughts. Faced with Xiao Sheng's inquiry, Xiao Chun didn't hide anything and replied truthfully, "Yes, that dragon might be my second sister. I can't just ignore it." "Your second sister? Boy, you really don't stop until you say something shocking. A dragon could be your second sister? And it might even be a pure-blooded dragon. Although I haven't really seen a dragon, it is said that dragons are extremely arrogant. Except for themselves, they don't care about any other races, including the demon race. Boy, can you be the brother and sister of a pure-blooded dragon?" Xiao Sheng said somewhat mockingly. In this regard, Xiao Chun curled his lips helplessly. Xiao Chun naturally knew about the arrogance of dragons, just like Long Qing. Although she was his second sister, she was indeed very arrogant. However, Xiao Sheng didn't know about the past between him and Long Qing, so he naturally couldn't understand the relationship between the two. But in any case, since a dragon had appeared in the West Sea and it was very likely to be Long Qing, then Xiao Chun couldn't leave. 6 updates today. This is the first update. Chapter 825. He gave up the idea of leaving West Sea City directly. After all, Long Qing was very likely to be the dragon that everyone was talking about. Since that was the case, Xiao Chun naturally couldn't just leave, not to mention that the holy son of the Sun Sacred Sect had already arrived in West Sea City, ready to kill Long Qing. He went directly to the ancient Sacred Sect's encampment in West Sea City. There was still a half-step Saint Deacon of the ancient Sacred Sect guarding here. The half-step Saint Deacon was very respectful towards Xiao Chen's arrival. It was not only because of Xiao Chen's identity as the Holy Son, but also because the saints valued Xiao Chun highly. The matter of Xiao Chun during the inheritance period had already spread inside the ancient Sacred Sect. Not only was he highly valued by the saints, but now Xiao Chun was no longer the 5th Holy Son, but the 1st Holy Son. After defeating Yuan Lin, Xiao Chen's title as the 1st Holy Son was recognized by the saints of the ancient Sacred Sect. Therefore, in the face of Xiao Chun, a big shot in the ancient Sacred Sect, the half-step Saint Deacon guarding West Sea City naturally didn't dare to neglect him in the slightest. A room was prepared for Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru. Then they sat in the main hall. Xiao Chun naturally sat in the main seat. Looking at the half-step Saint Deacon below, Xiao Chun said with a smile, "Do you know which Holy Son of the Sun Sacred Sect has come this time?" He didn't know which Holy Son of the Sun Sacred Sect had come to West Sea City. In the face of Xiao Chen's inquiry, the half-step Saint Deacon didn't conceal anything and answered truthfully. "It's the 4th Holy Son, Juntong." Like the ancient Sacred Sect, the Sun Sacred Sect also had 4 Holy Sons, but Xiao Chun had only seen the 3rd Holy Son, Yin Xiong. Originally, Xiao Chun thought that if it was Yin Xiong who came this time, then things would be easier. Unfortunately, it wasn't Yin Xiong, but Juntong. Compared to Yin Xiong, Juntong's strength was weaker, but he still couldn't be underestimated. After all, he was a Holy Son. After knowing who this person was, Xiao Chun asked about the giant azure dragon attacking West Sea City, as well as whether he knew where the dragon race was. He told Xiao Chun the whole story in detail. But unfortunately, Xiao Chun did not get any useful information from the sage-to-be deacon. Furthermore, he did not know where the dragon tribe was now. Since they couldn't find the dragon, they could only wait for her to come knocking on their door. Regarding this, Xiao Chun was also helpless. Now, he didn't know what Juntong meant. If he insisted on killing the dragon, then there was likely to be a battle. And if that dragon happened to be Long Qing, then Xiao Chun naturally couldn't stay out of it. He didn't know Juntong at all, so there was no friendship between them. It seemed that he could only wait. They stayed in the ancient Sacred Sect's encampment. At night, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru naturally couldn't sleep in separate rooms. Both of them were already married. With a beauty like Qin Shiru by his side, Xiao Chun naturally didn't have much mood to cultivate. Moreover, he had cultivated too much during this period, so Xiao Chun just happened to want to relax. Just as he was about to sleep, Xiao Chun said to Xiao Sheng in his body, "Old ancestor, we're going to sleep. If you want to sleep, then sleep. I didn't stop you." Hearing this, Xiao Sheng replied snappily, "I'll stay with Shuru. Old ancestor, I'm afraid it's not suitable for you to stay here." Xiao Sheng didn't understand his meaning at all. Xiao Chun had no choice but to say it clearly. Really, an old monster who has lived for God knows how many years. How can he be so blind? He secretly thought. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng didn't say anything more and directly went to the next room. Anyway, he had now completely made up for his remnant soul. Even if it wasn't in Xiao Chen's body, it wouldn't be a problem. After driving away Xiao Sheng, the third wheel, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru naturally did what they loved to do. In the next few days, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru stayed in the ancient Sacred Sect's encampment. 3 days passed in a row. Late at night, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru were still awake. However, in an instant, above the endless sea outside West Sea City, a terrifying aura soared into the sky. As the westernmost city of the Sun's sacred sect, West Sea City was adjacent to the West Sea. It could be said to be a seaside city. At this time, the aura of many monster beasts soared into the sky from the West Sea. In an instant, Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru's expressions changed slightly. Xiao Chun even whispered softly, "They're here." After saying this, Xiao Chun called Xiao Sheng and Qin Shiru and rushed out of the city. When Xiao Chun and the other two arrived at the city wall, they saw a dense crowd of monster beasts swarming towards West Sea City. These monster beasts all came from the sea. Xiao Chun indeed saw a huge azure dragon among them. With just a glance, Xiao Chun recognized that it was his second sister, Long Qing. He didn't expect it to really be Long Qing. However, looking at Long Qing's furious appearance, it was clear that she hated West Sea City. It was no wonder. He was no stranger to Long Qing's character. This woman was definitely not easy to deal with. The cultivators of West Sea City actually wanted to slay a dragon and kill her, and more than once. With Long Qing's character, how could she possibly allow herself to be captured without a fight? After gathering many monster beasts, Long Qing attacked again. It seemed that this time, she wanted to completely raze West Sea City to the ground. Xiao Chun didn't find it strange that Long Qing could gather so many monster beasts. As a member of the dragon race, Long Qing was also the strongest and rarest pure-blooded dragon among the dragon race. The power of her bloodline was extremely powerful. Among the monster beasts who only looked at the power of their bloodline, the pure-blooded dragon race could be said to be destined to be the emperor of the monster beasts. All monster beasts had to listen to their orders. Of course, to be able to fight for a pure-blooded dragon was something to be proud of in the eyes of many monster beasts. The monster horde was getting closer and closer, and the cultivators of West Sea City also rushed to the city wall. Facing the attack of so many monster beasts, the cultivators of West Sea City all had ugly expressions. However, at this time, above the city wall, a young man wearing the robe of the Sun's sacred sect's Holy Sun appeared out of thin air. This young man was none other than the Holy Sun who had specially come from the Sun's sacred sect to kill Long Qing, Juntong. With the appearance of Juntong, the experts of the Sun's sacred sect also appeared one after another. Seeing this scene, the people on the city wall gradually calmed down. Looking at the monster horde that was constantly attacking above the sea, Juntong's eyes were fixed on Long Qing. Dragon race, that was a dragon, and a pure-blooded one at that. Murderous intent flashed across Juntong's eyes. If he could kill this pure-blooded dragon today, not only would he gain a lot of benefits, but his prestige would also skyrocket. After all, a dragon slayer would be remembered by the world. Locking his eyes on Long Qing, Juntong's indifferent voice sounded. "Everyone, the monster beasts are attacking the city. Let's kill these bastards together." Second update, brothers, seeking recommendation votes, seeking monthly votes, seeking collection. Chapter 826. Facing the attack of so many monster beasts, Juntong was not nervous at all. After all, the Tiana continent was a human world. Although there were monster beasts, they were not enough to threaten the safety of humans. With these monster beasts gathered by Long Qing, they might be able to break through West Sea City in normal times, but it was absolutely impossible today. The reason was very simple, because Juntong was here. With Juntong and the powerhouses of the Sun Saint sect, these monster beasts alone could not break through West Sea City. Because of this, Juntong did not care about the attack of the monster beasts at all. The only thing he was interested in was the pure-blood dragon. Killing the dragon was the reason why Juntong came all the way from the Sun Saint sect to West Sea City. His purpose was very simple and direct. Hearing Juntong's words, the warriors on the city wall were also full of fighting spirit. With the Holy Sun leading the team, they were not afraid of these monster beasts. As soon as Juntong's voice fell, the monster beast had already rushed to the front of West Sea City. At the same time, The warriors on the city wall also rushed out and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the monster beasts. Seeing the outbreak of the battle between the two sides, Qin Shuru naturally recognized Long Qing. He turned to Xiao Chun and said, "Husband." Qin Shuru's meaning was very clear. He was asking Xiao Chun what to do. Hearing this, Xiao Chun slightly exhorted for a moment, then pulled Qin Shuru down the city wall and walked to a place where there was no one. No one knew what Xiao Chun was going to do. At this time, Juntong finally met Long Qing head-on. He had already transformed into his true form, a giant azure dragon more than 100 feet long, occupying the sky. Compared to Long Qing's true form, Juntong was very small. However, this seemingly sand-sized body erupted with a power even more terrifying than Long Qing's. Facing Long Qing, Juntong was not afraid, only excited and full of fighting spirit. A pure blood dragon. Staring at the huge figure of Long Qing, Juntong's aura soared into the sky as he said indifferently, "It really is a pure-blooded dragon. It seems that I, Juntong, will become the first person in the Tiana continent to slay a dragon. And you think you're worthy?" Hearing this, Long Qing spoke in human language. Although judging from Juntong's aura, this person was definitely not simple. Long Qing did not have the slightest intention of backing down and was still fearless. Naturally, it was impossible for him to show weakness. Hearing this, Juntong sneered, "You evil beast, die for me." Without any superfluous words, Juntong chose to attack. The man and the dragon immediately engaged in a fierce battle. After so many years, Long Qing's cultivation had also reached the beginner level of the beast revered realm, the same level as Xiao Chun. His cultivation progress did not fall behind Xiao Chun's at all. Xiao Chun was able to break through to the Dao Master realm because of several great opportunities, but Long Qing relied on his own bloodline to break through to the beast revered realm. This showed how terrifying the bloodline of the dragon was. However, although Long Qing's cultivation was now at the beginner level of the beast revered realm, in terms of strength, there was still a big gap between him and Juntong. There was no other way. Although the bloodline of the dragon was strong, Long Qing was now just a young dragon, and the power of his bloodline had not been fully awakened. On the other hand, Juntong was a figure at the Holy Sun realm. Not to mention his terrifying combat strength. Merely his cultivation was at the Dao Emperor realm. There was a gap of an entire realm between them, so Long Qing naturally didn't have any chance of victory. In fact, Long Qing was injured by Juntong in a single blow. In response, Juntong smiled and said, "You should still be in your infancy. Otherwise, even a quasi-saint would not be a match for a full-grown pure-blood dragon." He could see at a glance that Long Qing was still in his infancy. Hearing this, the killing intent in Long Qing's eyes intensified, and he shouted without backing down, "Even in my infancy, it's enough to kill you. Is that so? If I give you a few more years, maybe you can. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance." In the face of Long Qing's angry shout, Juntong did not refute and just said indifferently. After saying this, without waiting for Long Qing to reply, Juntong once again took the initiative to attack. The battle was almost one-sided. Long Qing could not block Juntong's attack at all. Many wounds had appeared on his huge body, and blood flowed out from the wounds. Soon, the green dragon scales were dyed red. His injuries were getting more and more serious. But even so, Long Qing still had no intention of retreating. Seeing that the victory was decided, Juntong held a long sword in his hand and said with a faint smile on his face, "It seems that the outcome is decided. Evil creature, you could die now." With that, Juntong directly slashed out with his sword. The sword edge swept across and was about to cut Long Qing's body. At this critical moment, a sword light flashed and collided with Juntong's sword edge, and then canceled each other out. Someone blocked Juntong's attack. Juntong frowned slightly. At the same time, in front of Long Qing, an ordinary-looking middle-aged man in black appeared on the field. Looking at the middle-aged man indifferently, Juntong said indifferently, "Who are you?" Juntong was about to succeed, but it was suddenly ruined. Naturally, he was furious. The identity of the middle-aged man was naturally Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun didn't want to become enemies with the Sun Saint clan, so he chose to hide his identity. Anyway, his purpose was only to take away Long Qing, and he didn't want to do anything to Juntong. In the face of Juntong's questioning, Xiao Chun, who had concealed his identity with the art of disguise, didn't answer. Instead, he transmitted his voice to Long Qing. "Second sister, let's go." Long Qing, who was initially confused, was stunned when he heard Xiao Chun's words. However, he quickly reacted and spoke to Xiao Chun through his mind telepathy with a look of surprise. You're my little brother?" The only person who could call her second sister was naturally Xiao Chun. In this regard, Xiao Chun nodded and confirmed Xiao Chun's identity. Long Qing was excited, but now was obviously not the time to reminisce. Xiao Chun once again urged Long Qing to leave, but this time, Long Qing said very unhappily, "No, I'm going to kill this human." Just now, she was almost killed by Juntong, so Long Qing's resentment couldn't be dispelled. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was directly speechless. Her bad temper was rising again. He knew Long Qing's bad temper very well, but it was obviously not the time to fight to the death with Juntong. That was why he was able to block Juntong's attack, and Xiao Chun was able to withstand Xiao Sheng's power. Otherwise, Xiao Chun would be no match for Juntong. Long Qing vowed to fight to the death with Juntong. Seeing this, Xiao Chun was directly speechless. Without saying a word, and regardless of whether Long Qing agreed or not, he grabbed Long Qing's tail and dragged her huge body directly into West Sea City. Third update, please bookmark, please recommend. Chapter 8:27. A person dragging a giant azure dragon that was over 100 feet long was rushing towards West Sea City. Being forcefully taken away by Xiao Chun, Long Qing struggled in dissatisfaction. "Little brother, let me go. If I don't kill this human today, I won't leave." Long Qing shouted in dissatisfaction, but Xiao Chun chose to ignore her. "Damn it, you want to kill him? If you don't leave now, you'll be the one who dies. You're really stubborn." Xiao Chun knew that Long Qing had a bad temper, especially when she liked to get into a dead end. He chose to ignore Long Qing's angry roar. At the same time, Xiao Sheng also teased Xiao Chun with a chuckle. "I heard that dragons are all very arrogant and stubborn. Now it seems that it's true." Xiao Sheng teased with a smile. Xiao Chun curled his lips and didn't say anything. Seeing Xiao Chun forcibly carrying Long Qing to escape, Juntong naturally didn't agree. She sneered and quickly chased after them. "Want to run? Can you run?" Xiao Chun's speed was already slow, so in the blink of an eye, Juntong caught up with Xiao Chun. It was impossible to escape, and Juntong had absolute confidence in this. However, would Xiao Chun be unprepared? Of course not. Just as Xiao Chun and Juntong crossed the West Sea city wall, Xiao Chun had just crossed it, and Juntong chased after him. At this moment, from below the city wall, an icicle suddenly soared into the sky, instantly freezing Juntong. This icicle was naturally Qin Shuru's means. As the ice god physique, Qin Shuru's spiritual energy had an extreme cold aura. However, it was impossible for this icicle to trap Juntong, but it only needed a few breaths of time. In just 3 or 4 breaths of time, the icicles were shattered by Juntong. However, when Juntong looked around, Xiao Chun and Long Qing were nowhere to be seen. When Juntong had been frozen for several breaths of time, Xiao Chun had ordered Long Qing to return to his human form. Then the group charged into West Sea City, and under the cover of the buildings in darkness, they headed straight for the ancient sacred sect's residence. After looking around and not finding any trace of Xiao Chun and Long Qing, Juntong's face turned ugly. She gave a cold snort and said, "Humph, I don't believe you can escape West Sea City. Even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, I will find that dragon." She was certain that Xiao Chun and Long Qing were in West Sea City, but Juntong had not guessed Xiao Chun's identity and would never have thought that they would be hiding in the ancient sacred sect's territory. First, they met up with Qin Shu and then returned to the ancient sacred sex territory. After safely arriving at the ancient sacred sex territory, Xiao Chun heaved a sigh of relief. Long Qing, who had returned to her human form and had many wounds on her body, still shouted with an unhappy face. "Little brother, why did you pull me to escape? If we joined hands, we would have definitely killed that human." She was still angry about what had happened just now. Upon hearing this, Xiao Chun grabbed Long Qing without saying a word and pressed her firmly on his legs. Then he slapped Long Qing's butt. "You didn't listen to my command. Do you know that you almost couldn't come back just now? Second sister, you shouldn't be so hot-tempered. You know that you are no match for him, yet you still want to court death?" Xiao Chun was also a little angry because of Long Qing, so he used a lot of strength. After being slapped by Xiao Chun, Long Qing was stunned at first, but then her face turned red and she shouted with shame and anger. "You! How dare you hit me? I am your second sister. Bullsh asterisk T. Even if you're my biological sister, I will still hit you today. Don't you know that you're not on the same level as Jun Tong? You still want to fight to your death?" Xiao Chun scolded and slapped Long Qing's butt again. After more than a dozen slaps, Long Qing was extremely angry and embarrassed. In the end, Xiao Chun's anger dissipated and he let go of Long Qing. Long Qing didn't attack again, which was rare. She just glared at Xiao Chun resentfully. Xiao Chun didn't care about Long Qing's resentment at all. This female Tyrannosaurus was disobedient and deserved a beating. Just now, because of Long Qing, he almost ruined his plan. One must know that Long Qing's identity was very tempting. If he didn't succeed in escaping, once his identity was exposed, Xiao Chun wasn't confident that he could protect Long Qing. One must know that pure-blooded dragons were full of treasures. If the Sacred Sun sect was jealous, wouldn't the ancient sacred sect be jealous as well? Therefore, even though Xiao Chun was the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, he couldn't guarantee that he could protect Long Qing. Therefore, Long Qing's identity couldn't be exposed casually in the future. Otherwise, those human warriors would flock to her. Until now, no one had seen Long Qing's appearance. As long as she didn't expose her identity as a dragon in front of others in the future, Xiao Chun had a way to deceive everyone. Only then could she be considered safe. Xiao Chun exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and said to Long Qing seriously, "Second sister, in the future, you are not allowed to transform into your original form in front of others, and you can't expose your identity as a dragon. Understand?" Upon hearing Xiao Chun's words, Long Qing didn't get angry, which was rare. Instead, she pouted and said, "I know." A pure-blooded dragon was actually so obedient to a human. Besides, Long Qing was the second sister, but she could be said to be obedient to her third brother, Xiao Chun. Apart from being a little stubborn when she was still angry, she didn't refute Xiao Chun's words now. Seeing Long Qing nodding obediently, Xiao Chun's Xiao Sheng was a little confused. This is still a pure-blooded dragon. Weren't all dragons arrogant and haughty? How can she be so obedient to a human? Oh my god. It was a little messy, but Xiao Chun didn't care about Xiao Sheng's thoughts at all. They were safe for the time being. Then, Xiao Chun asked about Long Qing's experiences over the years. In the face of Xiao Chun's inquiry, Long Qing naturally didn't hide anything and told him the truth. In fact, Long Qing's experiences over the years weren't complicated. As soon as she came to the Sky River mainland, she appeared in the West Ocean. As a dragon, living in the ocean was nothing to Long Qing. Therefore, Long Qing had never left the West Ocean and had been cultivating in the West Ocean. With the help of her powerful dragon bloodline, Long Qing's cultivation speed could be said to be terrifying. She had forcefully cultivated to the initial stage of the Beast Sovereign realm. Upon hearing Long Qing's words, Xiao Chun felt helpless. It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. No, it should be comparing oneself to a dragon. Thinking about it, if it weren't for the numerous opportunities that he had obtained, his cultivation would probably be far from the Dao Sovereign realm. But look at Long Qing. Just by relying on her dragon bloodline, she had forcefully caught up with his cultivation speed. This showed how terrifying the dragon bloodline was. After finishing Long Qing's story, Xiao Chun asked at the end, "Have you seen Big Brother?" "No." Long Qing shook his head when he heard that. Chapter 4. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 828. Long Qing hadn't seen Chun Ling and didn't have any news about him. To put it bluntly, Long Qing had been living in the West Sea all these years and hadn't interacted with anyone from the heavenly Qin continent. There was still no news about Chun Ling and Xiao Qing. As such, Xiao Chun could only give up. Then, Xiao Chun introduced Xiao Sheng to Long Qing. When she saw Xiao Sheng, Long Qing's expression changed, and she exclaimed in surprise, "Little brother." He isn't. Long Qing had seen Xiao Sheng before, but wasn't he already dead in the heavenly Qin continent? So why did he appear here now? Xiao Chun wasn't surprised by Long Qing's surprise. He briefly explained what had happened to Long Qing. After Long Qing understood the whole story, he came back to his senses and said with a sigh, "You're right. I see. In that case, Senior still has a chance to be resurrected?" "Yes, there is. And it should be soon." Xiao Chun nodded in response. "Little girl, your dragon bloodline is very rich. It seems like you're one of the top pure-blooded dragons," Xiao Sheng said with a smile after Xiao Chun finished his sentence. Xiao Sheng had never seen a pure-blooded dragon before, so he was rather interested in Long Qing. However, Long Qing's attitude towards Xiao Sheng instantly turned cold. Of course, this coldness was entirely due to Long Qing's personality. As a pure-blooded dragon, Long Qing didn't care about any other race. This was a pride that went deep into her bones. Perhaps only in front of Xiao Chun would Long Qing show this intimate side of her. Even when facing Chun Ling, Long Qing's attitude was indifferent. There was no intimacy at all. After being brushed off by Long Qing, Xiao Sheng didn't continue to flatter her. However, Xiao Sheng still looked at Xiao Chun with jealousy. He thought to himself, just how lucky is this kid? Not only does he have the ice goddess physique and the moon goddess physique, but even his second sister is a pure-blooded dragon and is extremely intimate with Xiao Chun. It should be known that it was almost impossible for a pure-blooded dragon to be intimate with a human being. However, Xiao Chun did it. They chatted for a while and soon returned to their rooms one after another. Of course, Xiao Chun still shared a room with Qin Shiru. The matter seemed to have been resolved. Xiao Chun also planned to take Long Qing to the 100,000 Fire territory. However, in the early morning of the next day, when Xiao Chun was about to leave, Juntong suddenly came with several experts of the Sun Saint sect, saying that they wanted to search. When the Sun Saint sect wanted to search the Ancient Saint sect's residence, the half-saint deacon of the Ancient Saint sect immediately told Xiao Chun about it. Hearing this, Xiao Chun smiled slightly. He wasn't worried at all. He even directly took Qin Shiru and Long Qing to the main hall to meet Juntong together. He wasn't afraid that his and Long Qing's identities would be exposed. Last night, Xiao Chun used the disguise technique. In such a short time, Xiao Chun was sure that Juntong couldn't detect any flaws, let alone see through his disguise. As for Long Qing, she had already turned into a human. As long as she didn't activate the power of her bloodline, her identity wouldn't be exposed. In Juntong's eyes, Long Qing was also a human being. Juntong strode into the main hall with the two women. Seeing Xiao Chun coming, Juntong was stunned at first. She looked at Qin Shiru and Long Qing beside Xiao Chun in amazement. It had to be said that Juntong was also attracted by the appearance of the two women. Qin Shiru was cold, while Long Qing was domineering. The two women with completely different temperaments stood together, but their appearance was equally stunning. It really made Juntong absent-minded for a moment. However, Juntong was a holy son, after all. His composure was naturally not comparable to that of ordinary people. Although he was stunned, he quickly recovered. He looked at Xiao Chun with a smile on his face and spoke in an extremely friendly manner. "This must be junior brother Xiao Chun. I've heard so much about you. Today, I finally get to meet you." Obviously, before coming, Juntong had made some preparations. She also knew that Xiao Chun was in West Sea City at this time. It was just that she didn't see Xiao Chen last night. Hearing Juntong's words, Xiao Chen also pretended to smile and said, "Senior brother is too polite. May I know why senior brother is here today?" Xiao Chen didn't have the slightest guilty conscience because he knew that Juntong definitely didn't see any flaws. Sure enough, seeing Xiao Chen's indifferent face, Juntong didn't have the slightest doubt and just said, "It's like this. Junior brother, Xiao, should also have heard about the beast attack last night, right?" I heard, but weren't they easily defeated by senior brother?" Hearing this, Xiao Chen replied, The beast horde has indeed been beaten back, but the dragon that organized the monster beast attack has escaped. Moreover, according to senior brother's guess, she should not have left West Sea City yet. She has only turned into human form to hide." Xiao Chen asked with a smile, "Senior brother, are you saying that I was the one who hit him?" "Haha, junior brother, you must be joking. I was just casually asking." Juntong laughed. In fact, the purpose of Juntong's visit today was very obvious. He wanted to search the ancient sacred sect's residence. He was afraid that the people of the ancient sacred sect had hidden the pure-blood dragon. After all, the temptation of a pure-blood dragon was not ordinary. Its body was full of treasures. Even a saint would be jealous. Xiao Chen had already guessed the purpose of Juntong's visit. He pretended to be friendly and chatted for a while. Then, Xiao Chen simply agreed to Juntong's search. After all, he could not find anything. He didn't have the slightest intention of stopping him. Facing Xiao Chen's calmness, Juntong secretly guessed that the dragon was really not in the hands of the ancient sacred sect. Although he had doubts in his heart, Juntong still ordered the search. Seeing was believing. If the dragon was really not in the hands of the ancient sacred sect, then it would save a lot of trouble. Watching Juntong and the others begin the search, Xiao Chen sat in the main hall with a calm face. He knew very well that the more he stopped Juntong at this time, the more confused he would be. Anyway, Long Qing was beside him. Even if Juntong dug 3 feet into the ground, he would certainly not find any clues. Juntong searched inside and out, but as Xiao Chen had expected, she found nothing. Eventually, Juntong came to the main hall and saluted Xiao Chen with her hands folded. "Junior brother, please forgive me. I have no choice. When you come to the ancient sacred sect in the future, I will personally apologize." Since they didn't find anything, Juntong took the initiative to apologize. Hearing this, Xiao Chen waved his hand indifferently and said, "Senior brother is too polite. In that case, junior brother won't keep senior brother any longer. To be honest, junior brother is planning to leave West Sea City today." "Oh, junior brother is leaving today? Where are you going?" Hearing this, Juntong pretended to be curious and asked. Chapter 5. Seeking Collection, Seeking Monthly Votes, Seeking Recommendation. Chapter 829. Hearing that Xiao Chen was leaving West Sea City today, Juntong pretended to be concerned. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "I won't hide it from senior brother. I came to the Sun Saint province this time to train in the 100,000 Flames domain." Xiao Chen bluntly stated his destination. Regarding this, there was no need to hide it. In any case, when he appeared in the 100,000 Flames domain, Juntong would definitely be the first to know if he wanted to. Acting was naturally a mixture of truth and falsehood. In the end, if you lied, you might end up making a fool of yourself. Sure enough, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the last bit of doubt in Juntong's heart vanished like smoke. Juntong didn't have any opinion about Xiao Chen going to the 100,000 Flames domain. Although the 100,000 Flames domain was one of the 4 great death zones of the Sky River continent. Like the Wind Plain, it was also one of the places where many cultivators went to train. Frankly speaking, the 100,000 Flames domain was even more popular than the Wind Plain. After all, the 100,000 Flames domain had the effect of tempering one's body. Just this point alone was enough to attract many people. After knowing that Xiao Chen was leaving West Sea City today, the two chatted casually for a while. In the end, Juntong said with a smile, In that case, I won't disturb Junior Brother. When this matter is over, Junior Brother must come to the Sun Saint sect. At that time, Senior Brother will treat you well as an apology for today's disturbance. Senior Brother is too polite. If there is time, Junior Brother will definitely pay a visit. Hearing this, Xiaochen also replied with a smile. Then, Juntong left with his people. After Juntong left, Long Qing, who had been indifferent all this time, said with an unhappy face, "Humph, Junior Brother, why are you talking so much with such a person? If it were up to me, I would have directly attacked him. In any case, this is our territory. Just kill him." Long Qing was obviously still filled with murderous intent towards Juntong. Xiaochen shook his head and smiled bitterly. His second sister was really... If he hadn't specifically warned her beforehand, perhaps she would have taken action just now. How could killing Juntong be so simple? If a holy son could be killed so easily, then it would be too much. Chen Yu had once told Xiaochen that the holy sons of the Tiana continent were difficult to kill even if they were half-step sages. After all, as holy sons, they had too many means, especially life-saving means. It was precisely because he knew that it was difficult to kill a holy son that Xiaochen had never thought of doing anything to Juntong. Now, he had completely dispelled the worries in his heart. Going to the 100,000 Flames territory was already the best result. As for Juntong, if he wanted to find Long Qing, he would continue to search in West Sea City. After searching for a while, he would naturally give up. Without further delay, Xiaochen informed the half-step sage deacon of the West Sea City encampment. Then, they directly stepped onto the transmission array and headed for the 100,000 Flames territory. There was a transmission array from West Sea City that led to the core of the Sacred Sun continent, but it couldn't go directly to the 100,000 Flames territory. They could only go to the main city of the Sacred Sun continent, Yinyang City, and then go to the 100,000 Flames territory from there. Yinyang City was the largest city in the Sacred Sun continent. At the same time, it was directly under the jurisdiction of the Sacred Sun sect. Therefore, Yinyang City had always been called the main city of the Sacred Sun continent. There wasn't the slightest obstruction, and Juntong didn't secretly obstruct them. Obviously, he had completely dispelled his suspicions about Xiaochen. Therefore, the group smoothly arrived at Yinyang City through the transmission array of West Sea City. Compared to a small border city like West Sea City, the prosperity of Yinyang City was breathtaking. Not only was there a cauldron of voices, but there were also countless kinds of pavilions and lofts. Moreover, all the houses in Yinyang City were fiery red. From afar, it looked like a huge ball of fire was burning on the ground. As the main city of the Sacred Sun continent, Yinyang City gathered cultivators from all over the Sacred Sun continent. Of course, the business here was also very developed. Not only could one buy things native to the Sacred Sun continent, but one could also buy treasures unique to the Sacred Sun continent and the ancient Sacred Sun continent. Even the Origin Wind Pill, which was a specialty of the ancient Sacred Sun continent, was sold by Xiaochen. There were people coming and going on the streets. Of course, Xiaochen was no longer the silly boy who had just arrived in the Heavenly River continent. Over the years, Xiaochen's knowledge and experience have been constantly increasing. Therefore, when faced with the prosperity of Yinyang City, Xiaochen didn't feel anything special. After all, there were cities comparable to Yinyang City in the ancient Sacred Sun continent, so there was no need to be surprised. Xiaochen was very calm, but Qinshu and Long Qing were a little troublesome. One was cold, the other overbearing. These two women actually began to stroll around excitedly when faced with the prosperity of Yinyang City. Of course, the two women didn't pay attention to the treasures used for cultivation. Instead, they paid attention to some women's items, such as rouge, face powder, hairpins, clothes, and so on. The two women could be said to be very happy shopping. Looking at these two beauties, they were like ordinary girls at this time, chatting and laughing while choosing the things they liked. Although their temperament was still unapproachable, there was a hint of womanly charm in them. In this regard, Xiaochen was helpless because the two women didn't listen to him at all. On the other hand, Xiao Sheng chuckled and teased them. It seems that no matter how cold a woman is, she still has no resistance to shopping. I say, boy, do you still plan to go to the 100,000 fire domain today? Or do you want to stay in Yinyang City for the night? Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun said helplessly, Look at you. Can you still leave tonight? Originally, Xiao Chun planned to go directly to the 100,000 fire domain, but now it seemed that he couldn't. With Qin Shiru and Long Qing's attitude, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to leave today even if he wanted to. They strolled through one store after another. At the same time, the two women's storage rings were filled up at an astonishing speed. All kinds of rouge, face powder, heavy and exquisite hairpins, and even some beautiful accessories. The two women didn't know how much they bought. Of course, the two women had no concept of money at all. Just like now, Long Qing walked directly into a clothing store, looked around, then waved her hand, and all the clothes in the store were put into her storage ring. Then, she directly bid 100 spirit stones and strode away. Seeing this scene, Xiao Chun was speechless. Did this woman use spirit stones to buy clothes? It was a complete waste of heaven's goods. One had to know that these clothes were just ordinary clothes. There was no need to use spirit stones to buy them at all. Gold coins would be enough. However, this woman actually directly gave 100 spirit stones to someone else. Xiao Chun was speechless as he followed behind the two women. Just as he was feeling listless, Long Qing's cold voice suddenly came from the front. Scram! Hearing Long Qing's cold voice, Xiao Chun raised his head and looked over. For a moment, a smile flashed across his eyes. Was there really someone who wasn't afraid of death here? He even dared to flirt with Long Qing. Please add me to your collection. Monthly vote. Recommend me. Chapter 830. Looking over, Xiao Chun saw a young man in the Sun Saint sect's personal disciple uniform blocking the way of Long Qing and Long Qing. At this time, he was saying something to Long Qing with a flattering face, while Long Qing was glaring at him with a livid face. A mere personal disciple was undoubtedly an ant-like existence in Long Qing's eyes. However, such an ant actually shamelessly boasted that he wanted Long Qing to be his woman. How could Long Qing not be angry? She already had an impulse to attack, but Xiao Chun strode over to Long Qing first and looked at the Sun Saint sect's disciple. You're not my second sister's cup of tea. Hurry up and leave. Xiao Chun did not let Long Qing attack. After all, Long Qing's identity as a member of the Dragon Clan could not be exposed. However, the Sun Saint sect's personal disciple was obviously reckless. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the disciple's face darkened, and he immediately shouted in a deep voice, Boy, who are you? Get out of here. Since he was not wearing the ancient sky robe, the disciple could not recognize Xiao Chen's identity. Hearing this, Xiao Chun smiled helplessly. He could feel that the personal disciple's cultivation was at the Tao transformation stage. Obviously, he had received the heritage of the Sun Saint sect. Perhaps it was because he had received the heritage that his strength had soared a lot, so the disciple became arrogant. However, his cultivation was not enough in Xiao Chen's eyes. Without bothering to talk nonsense, Xiao Chun directly slapped out. Seeing that Xiao Chun dared to attack, the disciple's face instantly darkened to the extreme. Although he reacted immediately and raised his hand to block, unfortunately, with his strength, how could he block Xiao Chen's attack? He easily broke through the disciple's defense and slapped the disciple's face. With a bang, the disciple was sent flying. They didn't care about such a small interlude. In the eyes of Xiao Chun and the other two, this personal disciple of the Sun Saint clan was nothing but a fly that they could easily swat to death. As for him coming to make trouble, Xiao Chun was even less afraid. He believed that the Sun Saint clan wouldn't offend him for a personal disciple. After dealing with this person, Qin Shiru and Long Qing continued to stroll around. However, perhaps because they had lost interest, the two women returned home not long after. Seeing that it was getting late, Xiao Chun and his group could only stay in Yinyang City for the night and find an inn to stay in. After a silent night, early the next morning, Xiao Chun and his group hurried to the 100,000 Flames territory. They directly stepped into the transportation array and didn't encounter any obstruction. However, just after Xiao Chun and the others left through the teleportation formation, the personal disciple who was slapped away by Xiao Chun the day before walked out from the corner. After listening to the report of a young man beside him, the disciple sneered. Go into the 100,000 flames territory? Very good, you dare to hit me. This young master will definitely make you regret it. As he spoke, the personal disciple also took the transportation array and headed to the 100,000 flames territory. This personal disciple clearly bore a grudge against Xiao Chun. At the same time, he also coveted Long Qing's appearance. He simply couldn't forget such a beautiful woman. However, he wasn't a fool. Yesterday, Xiao Chun had sent him flying with a slap. He already knew that Xiao Chun's strength was definitely far above his, so he didn't foolishly act rashly. Instead, he chose to follow Xiao Chun and his group to the 100,000 flames territory. Unaware that the personal disciple had followed them to the 100,000 flames territory, Xiao Chun and his group had already arrived at a small city on the outskirts of the 100,000 flames territory. It was called Skyfire City. Skyfire City was specially built for the 100,000 flames territory. Most of the cultivators who came and went in the city were people who came to the 100,000 flames territory. Of course, most of them were disciples of the local forces of the Sun Saint sect, especially the Sun Saint sect disciples. Compared to Yin Yang City, Skyfire City was much smaller. Moreover, it couldn't be said to be bustling. The people coming and going on the streets looked hurried. It was still early, so Xiao Chun planned to go directly to the 100,000 flames territory. Qin Shiru and Long Qing naturally wouldn't refuse. Thus, the group directly rushed out of Skyfire City. It was very close to the 100,000 flames territory from Skyfire City. It only took less than an hour. They left the city without any obstructions. After traveling for an hour, Xiao Chun and his group finally arrived at the outskirts of the 100,000 flames territory. As far as the eye could see, the 100,000 flames territory was simply a sea of fire. There was no end to the sea of fire. The flames enveloped the land and hadn't been extinguished for thousands of years. Because of the existence of the 100,000 flames territory, the surrounding temperature was ridiculously high. Even cultivators with cultivation like Xiao Chun could feel the scorching heat. Just like the wind plains, if one wanted to enter the 100,000 flames territory, they also had to rely on the power of a talisman. Naturally, Xiao Chun had already prepared for this. He took out 3 talismans. After the 3 of them used them, they stepped into the 100,000 flames territory. This talisman was called the Sacred Flame Talisman. It was also a saint-level talisman. With this talisman, one could pass through the 100,000 flames territory unimpeded. After entering the 100,000 flames territory, Xiao Chun seemed to have walked into a time of flames. Looking at the raging flames around him, Xiao Chun was very interested in the 4 great deathlands of the Tiana continent. He wanted to know how they were formed. This time, Xiao Chun's purpose in coming to the 100,000 flames territory was very clear. It was to break through the tempered battle body. Therefore, they didn't stop at the outskirts. The group went directly to the core area where the heavenly flames were. While Xiao Chun and his group were heading to the core area of the 100,000 flames territory, the personal disciple who had been following Xiao Chun also learned that they had entered the 100,000 flames territory. With a sneer on his face, the personal disciple said fiercely, "Boy, I don't care who you are, but you are dead meat." As he said that, the personal disciple hurriedly came to an inconspicuous small courtyard in Skyfire City. Although the courtyard looked inconspicuous, the personal disciple was very respectful when he entered. He cautiously walked to the backyard. At the same time, in the backyard, a young man wearing the robe of the Sun Saint sect's prospective Holy Son was meditating with his eyes closed. He respectfully came to the prospective Holy Son and didn't dare to disturb him. After waiting for about half an hour, the prospective Holy Son slowly opened his eyes and said indifferently, "What's the matter?" "Senior brother, Junior brother, the personal disciple obviously came to ask for help. He wasn't a match for Xiao Chun, so he could only ask the prospective holy son of the Sun Saint sect to take action. Therefore, he told the story with exaggerated details. Hearing this, the prospective holy son said indifferently, "Go and keep an eye on them. If they leave the 100,000 Flames territory, just inform me." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 831. The young man's name was Li Changle, and he was the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. Hearing his words, the Sun Saint sect's direct disciple's face lit up, and he respectfully left the small courtyard. He didn't know that this direct disciple of the Sun Saint sect had already found Li Changle. After this direct disciple left, a middle-aged man dressed in simple clothes and with bruises on his face cautiously walked into the courtyard and cupped his hands towards Li Changle as he spoke. "Young master, everything is ready." Li Changle did not reply to the middle-aged man's words. Instead, he stood up slightly and walked out of the courtyard. However, when he passed by the middle-aged man, Li Changle stopped. Without saying anything, he directly slapped the middle-aged man in the face. His tone was still extremely indifferent as he spoke. "If you can't even do such a simple thing in the future, you can kill yourself if there's a next time." After speaking, Li Changle didn't wait for the middle-aged man's reply and directly left the small courtyard. Following Li Changle's departure, a hint of unwillingness and stubbornness flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes. However, it quickly disappeared and was replaced by a lifeless appearance. It was as if he had become a walking corpse. If Xiao Qin was here, he would definitely be furious. This was because the middle-aged man was none other than his father, Xiao Qing. He didn't know why Xiao Qing had become Li Changle's servant, but it wasn't hard to tell from a brief scene that Xiao Qing wasn't doing well. Under Li Changle's command, Xiao Qing wasn't even a servant, but more like a slave. Of course, Xiao Chun didn't know all of this. At this moment, Xiao Chun had already led Qin Shu and Long Qing deep into the 100,000 fire territory. They didn't stop at the periphery and went straight to the core of the 100,000 fire territory. In terms of size, the 100,000 fire territory wasn't as large as the Wind Plains. Therefore, it only took Xiao Chun and the others a day to enter the core of the 100,000 fire territory. In addition, the location of the heavenly fire wasn't difficult to find, so it didn't take much effort for Xiao Chun and the others to find the location of the heavenly fire. A circular fireball, about 100 meters in diameter, was suspended in the air, surrounded by raging flames that were several feet high. This was the source of the heavenly fire, and the temperature here was much higher than anywhere in the 100,000 fire territory. Looking at the heavenly fire in front of him, Xiao Shang's figure floated out of Xiao Qin's body and said calmly, "Boy, it's very dangerous to temper your body with the heavenly fire. You must be careful. In order to break through the refined physique's second level, Jade Viscera, one must use heavenly flames to refine their body. However, using this method was very dangerous. The slightest carelessness would result in one being incinerated into nothingness." Xiao Qin nodded seriously when he heard Xiao Shang's words. He knew that he could not afford to be careless while tempering his body with the heavenly fire. They didn't need heavenly fires, but they didn't need heavenly fires. Of course, it was still possible to use the flames around the heavenly fire to temper their bodies. After all, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. Xiao Chun was about to enter the heavenly fire after he was done with his preparations. However, at that moment, a figure slowly emerged from the heavenly fire, hovering in the sky. Xiao Chun and the others frowned slightly when they saw the figure. There was someone inside the heavenly fire? They didn't think of this at all, because it was just a vague figure. They didn't know who it was. But not long after, the figure slowly walked out of the heavenly fire and appeared in front of Xiao Chun and the others. Xiao Chun was afraid at first because he didn't know the person's identity. But when he saw the person's face, Xiao Chun was stunned. "Big brother?" After being stunned for a while, Xiao Chun called out with uncertainty. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the young man who walked out of the heavenly fire also came back to his senses. A smile appeared on his face. He then leaped up and came directly in front of Xiao Chun, saying excitedly, "Third brother and second sister, what are you doing here?" The person who walked out of the heavenly fire was Chunling. They didn't expect to meet Chunling here. After the initial shock, the three of them hugged each other happily. After hugging for a while, Xiao Chun asked Chunling, "Big brother, what are you doing here?" "Oh, I came here half a year ago to use the heavenly fire to cultivate. I was just about to leave, but I didn't expect you to come." Chunling was also here to use the heavenly fire to cultivate. However, he didn't use the heavenly fire to temper his body. Instead, he used it to recover his cultivation. Chunling's cultivation method was very special. Xiao Chun knew this, so Xiao Chun didn't continue to ask him. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chun noticed that Chunling's cultivation had also reached the beginning of the Dao Master Realm. He was the same as Longqing and himself. Xiao Chun had an opportunity, and Longqing had the bloodline of the Dragon Tribe. However, Chunling's cultivation wasn't slower than the two of them. Xiao Chun and Longqing weren't surprised. After all, the two of them knew that Chunling was the reincarnation of a powerful person. His cultivation speed was already heaven-defying. In other words, Chunling wasn't cultivating at all. He was recovering. It was even more unbelievable that Xiao Chun could catch up with Chunling's recovery speed. Therefore, after noticing that Xiao Chun's cultivation had also reached the beginning of the Dao Master Realm, Chunling was surprised. "Third brother, it seems that you've had a lot of opportunities over the years. You've already reached the beginning of the Dao Master Realm." Chunling looked at Xiao Chun and said with a smile. Xiao Chun's cultivation speed shocked Chunling. In response, Xiao Chun just smiled and briefly described his experience over the years. After talking about his experience, Xiao Chun looked at Chunling and asked, "By the way, big brother, where have you been all these years?" "Me? At first, I was sent to the Heaven Saint continent and cultivated there for a few years. Then, I came to the Sun Saint sect. Along the way, I cultivated on my own and didn't join any of the local sects in the Tiana continent. This time, I came to the 100,000 Flames territory to cultivate." Hearing this, Chunling replied. Just like Longqing, Chunling had spent the past few years alone, crossing 2 continents. Hearing this, Xiao Chun also knew that, as the reincarnation of a powerful figure, Chunling was almost the same as Longqing. He didn't need anyone to teach him. As long as he had enough spiritual qi, he could continue to break through his cultivation. Chunling's experience was very simple, but they were naturally quite happy to meet here. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chun finally said to Chunling, "Big brother, this time you don't have to leave. After my physical body breaks through, you can come back to the ancient saint sect with us. Something big will happen in the Tiana continent soon. If we stay together, we can take care of each other." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 832. Xiao Chun took the initiative to invite Chunling previously. Longqing had already agreed with Xiao Chun that after the Sun Saint sect matter was over, Longqing would follow Xiao Chun back to the ancient saint sect. Now that he had met Chunling, Xiao Chun naturally would not let him act alone. After all, the demon race was about to arrive. He did not say what was going to happen. After all, Xiao Sheng had already said that the matter of the demon race should not be made public for the time being. Otherwise, it would cause panic, which would not be good. Therefore, Xiao Chen only said that something big was going to happen, but did not say what it was exactly. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chun Ling smiled and said, "Third brother, are you talking about the demon race?" Xiao Chen did not say it, but Chun Ling knew. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was slightly stunned. Not only Xiao Chun, even Qin Shiru and Xiao Sheng were the same. Other than the saints, no one knew that the demon race was about to invade. Even a holy son like Chen Yu did not know, but how did Chun Ling know? It was impossible that the saints had told him. After all, Chunling was alone and was not a disciple of the ancient saint sect. Facing the doubts of the few people, Chunling explained unhurriedly, "I can feel it. Although the demon chi coming from the Saint Yin sect is not strong, I can still feel it." Indeed, no one told Chunling had come out on his own. Of course, saying that he felt it was actually nonsense. The reason why Chunling knew that the demon race was about to attack was entirely because he was not unfamiliar with the demon race. In fact, it could be said that he understood it very well. It was precisely because of this understanding that Chunling sensed that the demon race was about to attack from the clues. After hearing Chunling's words, although he knew that it was just a perfunctory answer, Xiao Chun did not pursue the matter. He took the initiative to change the topic and said, "Since Big Brother already knows, then follow us back to the ancient saints sect. All right, when you're done, we'll return to the ancient sacred sect together." Chunling agreed very readily when he heard Xiao Chen's words. Seeing that Chunling had agreed, Xiao Chen smiled and said a few words to Xiao Sheng, Qin Shu, and Long Qing before entering the heavenly flame. After handing Qin Shu and Long Qing over to Chunling and Xiao Sheng to take care of, Xiao Chan began to temper his body with heavenly fire in order to break through the second layer of the tempered body, the Jade Organs realm. After Xiao Chan entered the heavenly fire, Chunling also suggested that Qin Shu and Long Qing use the flames outside the heavenly fire to temper their bodies. This was beneficial to the two women. Naturally, the two women would not reject Chunling's suggestion. Then they found two places outside the heavenly fire to sit down and close their eyes to cultivate. Xiao Chun, Qin Shu, and Long Qing began to cultivate one after another. As a result, only Chunling and Xiao Sheng were left with nothing to do. Xiao Sheng was only a strand of Saint Soul, so it was impossible for him to withstand the tempering of the heavenly fire. Chunling had already completed the cultivation of the heavenly fire, so there was no need for him to continue. The two of them had nothing to do, and Chunling did not seem too surprised when he saw Xiao Sheng. In response, Xiao Sheng took the initiative to ask, "You've seen me before in the heavenly Chan continent, right?" "Yes, I've seen you before." Hearing this, Chunling did not hide it and nodded frankly. "Then you're not surprised?" Xiao Sheng asked. "There's nothing to be surprised about. As long as a strand of Saint Soul is not destroyed, there's hope of resurrection. Although the hope is very slim, it's not impossible," Chunling said. Chunling seemed to have guessed everything. Regarding this, Xiao Sheng was also curious. From the first time he saw Chunling, Xiao Sheng felt that there was something strange about Chunling. His movements did not seem like the style of the younger generation. Moreover, there was a faint power of law surrounding Chunling. It seemed like they were chatting casually, but after a while, Xiao Sheng suddenly thought of something. He looked at Xiao Sheng and said with a smile, "I know, you must have been reincarnated through possession, right? Some almighty figures with exceedingly high cultivation had the ability to be reincarnated through possession. Although in this way, they would lose all their cultivation, but their memories could be preserved." Xiao Sheng had once seen such an introduction in an ancient book. Moreover, there were records of almighty figures being reincarnated through possession in the Tiana continent. However, in order to be reincarnated through possession, one's cultivation had to at least reach the quasi-saint realm. Saints could not be reincarnated through possession. In other words, Chunling's cultivation in his previous life had at least reached the quasi-saint realm. Xiao Sheng had seen through Chunling's secret. Regarding this, Chunling was not surprised. He only smiled slightly and said, "That's all in the past. It's not worth mentioning." He did not deny Xiao Sheng's guess, but Chunling did not want to be entangled in this matter too much. Xiao Sheng naturally would not pursue this matter. However, after confirming that Chunling was an almighty reincarnated person, Xiao Sheng felt like he had been cursed. Xiao Chen did not know what to say. Mother of Asterisker, why were the people around him all so abnormal? Also, how could there be so many geniuses in the Tianqian continent all of a sudden? It should be known that not to mention the women around Shao Chun, the ice god physique and the moon god physique were the top special physiques in any continent. With such special physiques, as long as the two women did not die, they would definitely become strong. This was a matter of certainty, and it was also the blessing of the heavens for them. Other than the two women, Shao Chen's brother and sister, one was a pure-blooded dragon, and the other was the reincarnation of an almighty who had at least reached the quasi-saint realm. In fact, Shao Shang guessed that Chunling's previous life was not just a quasi-saint. It was very likely that he was even more terrifying than a quasi-saint. It was not an exaggeration to say that the people around Shao Chun were simply more terrifying than the one before. Furthermore, Shao Shang could clearly feel that when everyone was together, Shao Chun was the center. Even Chunling, the reincarnation of an almighty, similarly listened to Shao Chen's words. Just how strong did a person's luck have to be able to gather such a group of monsters around him? It should be known that Chunling, Long Qing, and the others would definitely reach the level of a saint within a few years. Shao Shang's heart was filled with doubts. As if he had seen through his thoughts, Chunling, who was at the side, seemed to be talking to himself. Third brother is a person with great luck. Furthermore, for us to be together with third brother, it can be said that it is fate. Therefore, regardless of whether it is me or second sister, although our identities are special, we are willing to surround third brother's side. Chunling muttered to himself. At this point, Chunling closed his eyes and did not speak anymore. Seeing this, Shao Shang did not speak again. Shao Chun was a person with great luck. Shao Shang believed that Shao Shang was a person with great luck. However, from Chunling's words just now, there seemed to be something that he did not say. Perhaps he knew something, but it was just not the time yet. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. This chapter ends. Chapter 833. Chunling did not say anything more, and Shao Shang also closed his eyes to rest. Both of them sat cross-legged with their eyes closed and did not speak. However, Shao Shang was still surprised by the people around Shao Chun. Each one was more abnormal than the other. They were either top special physiques or pure-blooded dragons. There was even a reincarnated almighty. Of course, the most abnormal one was Shao Chun. The heavenly sword embryo and the tempered battle body were both top items. Needless to say, the heavenly sword embryo was not even worth mentioning. Even the tempered battle body was something that Shao Shang could not see through. This body tempering technique was indeed unfathomable. He did not know who created this body tempering technique and what level his cultivation had reached. Just as everyone began to close their eyes to cultivate, Shao Chun, who was in the heavenly fire, had already begun to temper his body according to the method of the tempered battle body. It was another pain that was worse than death. It was even more painful than when he first started cultivating the tempered battle body. After all, it was the heavenly fire. Tempering the body in the heavenly fire was already extremely painful. Furthermore, Shao Chun had to follow the method of the tempered battle body and take the initiative to draw the heavenly fire into his body to temper his internal organs. Shao Chun was asking for trouble. Taking the initiative to draw the heavenly fire into his body was definitely something that only a madman would do. To be honest, although the tempered battle body was terrifying, it was not something that anyone could cultivate. Even if the requirements were met, one must have great perseverance. Otherwise, even if it was given to you, you would not dare to cultivate it. He gritted his teeth and persevered. His face was flushed red. He felt as if his entire body was about to be roasted. His internal organs felt as if they were about to melt. Every time he broke through the tempered battle body, it could be said to be a painful transformation. If he could endure it, he would take another step forward. If he could not endure it, he could only die. He had seen the terror of the earth fire before. However, compared to the heavenly fire, the earth fire was clearly child's play. It was not worth mentioning at all. His entire body seemed to be burning from the inside out. Under such painful perseverance, Xiao Chun operated the tempered battle body while secretly persevering. Xiao Chun didn't know how much time had passed. Anyway, he didn't have any concept of time. His internal organs were constantly changing as the heavenly fire tempered him. Vaguely, Xiao Chen's internal organs began to emit bursts of golden light. This golden light seemed to be invulnerable. Under the tempering of the heavenly fire, Xiao Chen's internal organs were much stronger than before. Once his internal organs turned from gold to jade white, the tempered battle body would be considered to have successfully broken through to the second level of the jade organs realm. Xiao Chun would then be immune to all poisons, and his physical strength would also improve by leaps and bounds. He was not sure how strong the second stage of the Jade Viscera realm was, but he was sure that it would not disappoint him. Under the scorching heat of the heavenly fire, Xiao Chen's internal organs turned from a golden color to a jade white color. He was close to breaking through to the second tier of the jade internal organs realm. Xiao Chen didn't know how long he persevered. In any case, his entire body was already numb. He couldn't even cry out in pain. However, under such perseverance, the tempered battle body finally came to the point of breaking through. A terrifying blood chi rose from Xiao Chen's body. This was the sign of the tempered battle body breaking through. Compared to before, the blood chi in Xiao Chen's body had increased by at least 3 times. Even some half-saints would find it difficult to achieve such a terrifying blood chi. When the terrifying blood chi spread, Chun Ling and Xiao Sheng opened their eyes at the same time. Shock flashed through their eyes. What kind of body-refining cultivation method is third brother cultivating? How can it be so terrifying? Chun Ling said in surprise. As the reincarnation of an almighty, Chun Ling's vision was very high. Although he didn't know where Chun Ling's hometown was, he could tell from a ninth heaven sword finger that he gave to Xiao Chan that Chun Ling's hometown was definitely a continent of a higher level than the Tiana continent. Otherwise, it would be impossible to have a martial skill like the ninth heaven sword finger. However, even with such a high standard, at this moment, Chun Ling was still shocked by Xiao Chun. What kind of body-refining technique could have such a terrifying power of qi and blood? Of course, Chun Ling still didn't know that Xiao Chen's temper battle body had only broken through to the second stage of the Jade Organs realm. There was still a long way to go before he could truly cultivate the tempered battle body. Otherwise, he would be even more shocked. Compared to Chun Ling, Xiao Shang was much less surprised. After all, he knew how terrifying the tempered battle body that Xiao Chun cultivated was and was already prepared. But even so, when he truly felt the blood chi that erupted after the tempered battle body broke through to the second stage of the Jade Organs realm, Xiao Sheng still secretly exclaimed. As expected of the number 1 body refining cultivation method in the Tiana continent, it's just the second stage, and it already has such a terrifying blood chi. I don't know what kind of transformation a body will have if it is completely cultivated. It was hard to imagine how powerful Xiao Chen's body would be if he could successfully cultivate the tempered battle body. Just as Xiao Sheng and Chun Ling were secretly shocked, Xiao Chun, who was inside the heavenly fire, suddenly opened his eyes. A golden light flashed in his eyes. He had finally succeeded in breaking through. At this moment, Xiao Chen only felt that his body was filled with power. Compared to before, his current body could be described as terrifying. His body didn't change much, but his strength had increased by several times. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid qi, Xiao Chan said softly, "I've finally broken through." After successfully breaking through, Xiao Chun felt relieved. At the same time, his strength had taken a qualitative leap. Now, Xiao Chun didn't put those prospective holy sons in the Tiana continent in his eyes. Even if he didn't dare to say that he could defeat a holy son, he should have no problem protecting himself. After all, with his powerful body, unless it was a very fatal or serious injury, Xiao Chen's life would not be threatened. A powerful body represented a rich vitality. This was also why those body cultivators who mainly cultivated their bodies often had much stronger vitality than ordinary warriors. This was also the benefit of a powerful body. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid qi, Xiao Chun slowly got up. This trip to the Sun Saint sect was finally completed. Then, Xiao Chun stepped out of the heavenly fire. After breaking through the second stage of the Jade Organ's realm, Xiao Chun clearly felt that the effect of the heavenly fire on him was minimal. There wasn't much meaning in continuing to stay here to cultivate. Therefore, Xiao Chun planned to return home and return to the Ancient Saint sect. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 834. After successfully breaking through to the second level of the Jade Organ's realm, Xiao Chun slowly walked out of the heavenly fire. Seeing Xiao Chun again, Chun Ling could clearly feel that there was a faint pressure unconsciously being emitted from Xiao Chen's body. This pressure did not come from his cultivation, but from Xiao Chen's physical body. Because he had just broken through, Xiao Chun could not control the power of his physical body very well. With a slight smile, Xiao Chun jumped down and landed in front of Chun Ling and Xiao Sheng. He looked at Xiao Sheng and said with a smile, "Ancestor, how long did it take me to break through this time?" In the heavenly fire, Xiao Chun had no concept of time at all. The unbearable pain made Xiao Chun unable to care about anything else. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng smiled and said, "It's already been 2 months." He had actually stayed in the heavenly fire for 2 months. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was a little surprised. He felt that he had not been cultivating in the heavenly fire for that long. It took him 2 months to successfully break through to the second level of the Jade Organ's realm. After being stunned for a moment, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "It's been 2 months. It's about time. Let's return to the Ancient Saint sect." Preparing to return to the Ancient Saint sect, no one had any objections. Afterwards, they called Qin Shu and Long Qing, and the group headed out of the 100,000 Flames territory. Of course, Xiao Sheng also returned to Xiao Chen's body. Before he was completely revived, it was better for Xiao Sheng not to expose himself. Compared to when they first came, there was one more person, and that was Chun Ling. The group of 4 headed towards Heavenly Fire City. If they wanted to leave the Sun Saint sect, they could only go back the way they came and take the transportation array. However, just as Xiao Chun and the others were about to leave, the direct disciple of the Sun Saint sect was waiting at the gate of Heavenly Fire City with several other disciples. Everyone's faces were gloomy, especially the personal disciple in the lead. He had already waited here for more than 2 months, but he still hadn't seen Xiao Chun and the others appear. He still couldn't forget Long Qing's peerless beauty. At the same time, he wanted to take revenge, but Xiao Chun didn't appear. Damn it, it's already been 2 months. Could it be that this brat died in the 100,000 Flames domain? The direct disciple's face darkened as he viciously thought to himself. Yi Fuqian did not know what kind of deep hatred there was for this personal disciple to guard here for 2 whole months. Just because Xiao Chun slapped him, it could be seen that this person was very narrow-minded. It could be said that he had completely lost his patience. Not only him, but the other core disciples of the Sun Saint sect were also like this. However, this personal disciple still didn't have the intention to give up. The anger in his heart couldn't be dispelled. Just as this personal disciple's face was extremely gloomy, suddenly, 4 young men and women slowly walked towards the city gate from afar. There were 2 men and 2 women. Seeing these 4 people, the personal disciple of the Sun Saint sect immediately became spirited. Weren't these people Xiao Chun and the others that he had been waiting for? The anger and resentment that he had accumulated over the past 2 months could finally be unleashed at this moment. It was as though he had picked up a treasure. This personal disciple immediately jumped 10 meters into the air. He excitedly turned his head to look at the person beside him and said, Quickly go back and inform Senior Brotherly Changle. Tell him that the brat has appeared. Ask him to quickly come to the city gates." Although he was angry, this personal disciple didn't foolishly rush up. He already knew that he was no match for Xiao Chun. so he could only rely on senior brother Li Changle. As the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect, he couldn't do it. Senior brother Li Changle wouldn't be able to deal with this brat. After hearing this direct disciple's order, the disciple by the side immediately flew into the city and went to inform Senior Li Changle. Not long after this personal disciple left, Xiao Chun and the others also arrived at the city gate unhurriedly. Just as they were about to enter the city, that personal disciple directly led people to block the path of Xiao Chun and the others. Seeing this personal disciple, Xiao Chun's expression didn't change as he said indifferently, "It's you again?" Like a ghost that won't go away. Although it had been 2 months, Xiao Chun still recognized this personal disciple. It was originally a very small matter that Xiao Chun didn't take to heart, but who would have thought that he would meet him here again? Moreover, looking at this personal disciple's appearance, it seemed that he had been waiting here for a long time. For such a trivial matter, this person could actually guard Sky Flame City for 2 months. That was why Xiao Chun said that he was like a ghost that wouldn't go away. However, hearing Xiao Chun's words, this personal disciple's face darkened. Brat, you dare to attack the people of the Sun Saint sect. Do you think this matter will be settled just like that? Obviously, he wouldn't let this matter go. In this regard, Xiao Chun only felt that it was a little troublesome, but since trouble had already come knocking on his door, there was nothing he could do. At most, he would just fight again. Anyway, this guy was asking for a beating, so he couldn't blame anyone. Third brother, who is this guy? Chunling didn't know this personal disciple. At this time, when he heard this, he also asked Xiao Chun curiously. Nothing, just an idiot who is itching for a beating. Hearing Chunling's words, Xiao Chun said indifferently. He didn't put this personal disciple in his eyes at all. However, just as Xiao Chun finished speaking, Li Changle's figure appeared in Sky Flame City. At the same time, there was a middle-aged man in ragged clothes beside Li Changle. This middle-aged man was none other than Xiao Chun's father, Xiao Qing. At this moment, Xiao Qing's appearance was much more miserable than before. Li Changle's eyes also flashed with anger. Previously, when he received the news from this personal disciple, Li Changle was originally punishing Xiao Qing. The reason was very simple. Xiao Qing didn't do what he had arranged. It could be said that he had beaten Xiao Qing up. After that, Li Changle directly brought Xiao Qing along. At the same time, he also punched and kicked Xiao Qing on the way and scolded him angrily. Now, they were already outside the city. In front of Xiao Chun and the others, Li Changle still slapped Xiao Qing's face and shouted angrily, "You're simply a piece of trash. You can't even do a small thing. What's the use of keeping you? Go and die." The more he scolded, the angrier he became. Then, Li Changle lifted his leg and kicked toward Xiao Qing. However, to everyone's surprise, Li Changle's kick didn't hit Xiao Qing. Instead, it was blocked by someone. Xiao Qin's figure appeared in front of Li Changle and blocked Li Changle's kick. At the same time, Xiao Qin's eyes were burning with anger. At the same time, a terrifying killing intent began to rise from Xiao Qin's body. When Li Changle appeared just now, Xiao Qin noticed him. After all, Li Changle was wearing the prospective Holy Sun's robe of the Sun Saint sect. However, when Xiao Qin shifted his gaze to the middle-aged man beside Li Changle, Xiao Qin immediately became angry. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 835. Xiao Qin's eyes flickered with rage. He hadn't given up on searching for Xiao Qing's whereabouts, but unfortunately, he hadn't obtained any information. Who would have thought that Xiao Qing would actually be in the Sun Saint sect? However, none of this was important. It didn't matter why Xiao Qing had appeared here or what Xiao Qing had done. Xiao Qin had seen Li Changle hit Xiao Qing with his own eyes. Just this point alone was enough to make Li Changle a dead man. Not only Xiao Chun, but Qin Shuru, Chun Ling, and Long Qing were also brimming with killing intent. What was laughable was that Li Changle still didn't know who Xiao Chun was. When Xiao Chun blocked his kick, Li Changle's expression was cold. "Who are you? Do you want to die?" In the Sun Saint sect, Apart from a few people, no one dared to interfere in Li Changle's business. However, Xiao Chun ignored him and turned to look at Xiao Qing, who was also in a daze. "Father, I'm late." Xiao Qing also didn't expect to meet Xiao Chun here. It wasn't just Xiao Chun, Qin Shu, Long Qing, and Chen Ling were also present. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, a line of clear tears flowed from Xiao Qing's eyes. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Everything happened too suddenly. The father and son were speechless. At the same time, the direct disciple of the Sun Saint sect quickly walked over to Li Changle and said respectfully, "Senior brother, it's this kid." The direct disciple was already laughing in his heart. It wasn't easy to ask Li Changle for help, but now Xiao Chun had taken the initiative to provoke Li Changle. How could Li Changle let him go? As if he could already see the scene of Xiao Chun being trampled by Li Changle, the direct disciple laughed in his heart. Hearing his words, a trace of killing intent flashed through Li Changle's eyes as he said indifferently, "Looks like he's really a reckless fellow." From the beginning to the end, Li Changle didn't put Xiao Chun in his eyes. This was normal. After all, he was the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. Except for those saints and saintesses, he didn't put anyone in his eyes. Even if Yuan Lin came, he wouldn't be afraid. At worst, no one could do anything to each other. It was impossible for Xiao Chun to be the Holy Sun, so Li Changle was not afraid. While Li Changle and Xiao Chun were talking, Xiao Chun had already handed Xiao Qing over to Qin Shiru. Then, he turned to look at Li Changle. The anger in his eyes had gradually subsided, but it was replaced by a strong, murderous intent. "Chinner, forget it. Nobody knew his son better than his father." Xiao Qing naturally knew what Xiao Chun wanted to do. However, knowing Li Changle's combat strength and identity, Xiao Qing also planned to keep the peace, afraid that Xiao Chun would suffer some losses. However, after hearing Xiao Qing's words, Xiao Chun just said indifferently, "Father, don't worry. I'm here for everything." "That's right, old thing. Do you think you can forget it just because you say so?" "None of them will survive today," Li Changle, who was standing opposite of Xiao Chun, said coldly as Xiao Chun finished speaking. Li Changle also didn't intend to let Xiao Chun go. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chun didn't hesitate and directly punched out. It seemed like an ordinary punch, but the power contained in it was enough to make people tremble in fear. After the tempered battle body broke through the second stage of the Jade Organ stage, Xiao Chen's physical strength was completely different from before. Facing Xiao Chen's punch, Li Changle wasn't a mediocre person. He immediately felt the terrifying power coming from Xiao Chen's fist. His face immediately changed, and he couldn't help but cry out, "You!" He was very surprised that Xiao Chun had such terrifying strength, but Xiao Chun didn't talk nonsense and didn't give Li Changle a chance to speak. He directly punched out. Facing Xiao Chen's punch, Li Changle didn't dare to take it head-on. He dodged the punch in a flash. With a loud bang, Xiao Chun blasted a huge, deep pit in the ground. Along with this punch, several Sacred Sun sect disciples present were stunned. How is this possible? Xiao Chun didn't use any martial skills or spiritual energy just now. He just relied on the strength of his physical body to have such power. The scene before them was completely beyond everyone's imagination. But in this regard, Xiao Chun didn't have any hesitation. He moved and attacked Li Changle again. The two fought fiercely. As the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect, Li Changle was completely suppressed by Xiao Chun from the beginning. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't dare to face Xiao Chun head-on, he would have been defeated long ago. Looking at the battle before him, the Sacred Sun sect's direct disciple, who was previously overbearing, was completely dumbfounded and said in disbelief, How is this possible? Senior brother, Li is suppressed." Li Changle wasn't Xiao Chen's opponent at all. Everyone could see this. Not only this direct disciple, but even Xiao Qing was also stunned. He naturally didn't expect his son to be so strong. Who is Li Changle? As the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect, Xiao Qing was very clear about his combat strength. But such a genius was beaten like a dog in front of Xiao Chun. Thinking that Xiao Qing was still worried about Xiao Chun, Qin Shiru also comforted him, "Father, don't worry. My husband can destroy such an ant with a wave of his hand. Qin Shiru, Long Qing, and Chunling didn't doubt Xiao Qian's strength at all. Amir Li Changle was simply a piece of cake. There was no difficulty at all. It was precisely because they had absolute confidence in Xiao Qian that the three of them didn't intend to attack at all. They just protected Xiao Qing behind them to ensure his safety. The battle continued. Although Li Changle tried his best to dodge and escape, he was still injured by Xiao Qian in the end. After being injured by Xiao Qian, Li Changle's situation became even worse. His injuries became more and more serious after being hit by Xiao Qian. In less than 100 breaths, Li Changle had already felt the aura of death constantly shrouding him. From the way Xiao Qian attacked, this guy in front of him definitely wanted to kill him. Facing death, Li Changle was afraid. At the same time, he didn't expect Xiao Qian to be so strong. Li Changle wasn't a match for him in terms of combat strength and didn't want to die. Therefore, he could only try his best to resist while shouting coldly. "Who are you?" "I'm the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect. If you dare to kill me, the Sacred Sun sect won't let you go." With such combat strength, Xiao Qian definitely couldn't be a nobody. At the same time, Li Changle felt that his status was noble. With his identity as the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect, how could Xiao Qian dare to kill him? He was still fantasizing about using his identity to threaten Xiao Qian. Unfortunately, not to mention that he was the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect. Even if the Sacred Sun sect came, Xiao Qian would still kill him without hesitation. At worst, he would borrow Xiao Sheng's strength again. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 836. He didn't care about Li Changle's threat at all. Bulsh *T, first chosen. Even if he was the son of ancient Saint Tianyang, he would still die today. In the face of Li Changle's threat, Xiao Qian didn't care at all. At the same time, the killing intent on his body increased, and his attacks became more ruthless. Feeling that Xiao Qian's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer, Li Changle completely panicked and shouted angrily again, "I don't care who you are. If you dare to hurt me, the Sun Saint clan won't let you go." He was still threatening Li Changle, but just as he was shouting, Xiao Qian successfully seized the opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. He punched out, and his fist was like a dragon emerging from the sea. It broke through all of Li Changle's defenses and hit Li Changle's chest hard. The sound of bones cracking rang out. In an instant, Li Changle's sternum was completely shattered, and his whole chest was completely caved in. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body was directly blasted into the sky by the punch. He fell to the ground, and smoke and dust rose everywhere. Seeing this scene, the surrounding disciples of the Sun Saint clan were completely dumbfounded. No one dared to move. Everyone stared at the place where Li Changle fell. Slowly, the smoke and dust began to dissipate, and soon, Xiao Qian and Li Changle's figures appeared in everyone's sight again. They saw Li Changle lying on the ground with a weak aura. Blood kept flowing out of the corners of his mouth and nostrils. Xiao Qian's face was cold. He stepped on Li Changle's abdomen and looked at him indifferently. You can't kill me. I'm the first chosen of the Sun Saint clan." Li Changle said weakly as he was stepped on by Xiao Qian. Hearing this, Xiao Qian said indifferently, "Go to hell and tell that to the King of Hell." After saying that, without any hesitation, Xiao Qian exerted force on his foot and crushed Li Changle's dantian. Li Changle spat out another mouthful of blood and struggled for a while. Then his head tilted, and Li Changle stopped breathing. There was no hesitation at all. Seeing Li Changle being killed with his own eyes, the Sun Saint sect's direct disciple screamed, "Ah, you killed Senior Brother Li. How dare you kill Senior Brother Li?" Faced with Li Changle's death, this personal disciple was clearly scared silly. Hearing his miserable scream, Xiao Qian turned his head to look. Although the killing intent in his eyes had faded a lot, it still did not dissipate. "You all deserve to die too." Since he had killed Li Changle, he might as well get rid of these ants as well. After saying that, Xiao Chun once again perched on the ground. Seeing Xiao Chun rushing toward them, the first reaction of the disciples of the Sun Saint clan was to run. What a joke! This was a ferocious person who could kill Li Changle. How could they possibly be a match for him? They could not summon any fighting spirit at all. The first thing they chose to do was to turn around and run. However, with the strength of these people, how could they escape from Xiao Chen's hands? With a point of his finger, the sword light flashed, and the Chun Jun sword finger was displayed, instantly piercing through the head of one of the disciples. After killing one person with a single finger, Xiao Chun did not stop. He pointed several fingers in succession, and in a moment, all the Sun Saint sect's disciples were killed, leaving only the direct disciple. Seeing that he was the only one left, the direct disciple was completely stunned. He knelt in front of Xiao Chun and kept crying and begging. However, Xiao Chun just said indifferently, "From the moment you came to Heavenly Flame City, the ending had already taken the initiative." After saying that, Xiao Chun was ready to attack, but at the same time, a terrifying pressure came from Heavenly Flame City, and at the same time, a loud shout was heard. "Stop!" It was the expert of the Sun Saint sect stationed in Heavenly Flame City who had arrived. However, Xiao Chun completely ignored him and still pierced through the direct disciple's forehead with one finger, killing him directly. In the end, the direct disciple was also killed by Xiao Chun. At the same time, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Xiao Chun, his eyes burning with rage. This middle-aged man was a half-saint deacon of the Sun Saint sect stationed in Heavenly Flame City, who was responsible for all the affairs of Heavenly Flame City. Previously, he had sensed the fluctuations of a battle outside the city and rushed here as soon as possible, but he was still a step too late. Looking around at the corpses of Li Changle and the other disciples, this half-saint deacon's heart trembled. Those disciples were not a big deal, but Li Changle was the first candidate chosen. Now that he had died here, how could the Sun Saint sect let it go? Perhaps even he would be implicated. Thinking of this half-saint deacon looked at Xiao Chun with a strong killing intent in his eyes. Now that things had come to this, he could only capture Xiao Chun and hand him over to the Sun Saint sect. The death of the first candidate chosen was definitely not a small matter. "Who are you? How dare you kill the first candidate chosen of my Sun Saint sect? You're courting death," he shouted coldly. Hearing this, Xiao Chun did not change his expression at all. His face was still cold as he said, "How could such trash become the first candidate chosen of the Sun Saint sect? And the first candidate chosen? I killed him to clean up the mess for your Sun Saint sect." Facing a half-saint expert, Xiao Chun still did not show the slightest fear. Of course, this was also because Xiao Chun had the ability to be fearless. Although the current Xiao Chun was far from being a match for a half-saint expert, don't forget that Xiao Sheng was a great weapon in his body. In the past few years, Xiao Chun had been making progress, but Xiao Sheng had not been idle. He had completely made up for this wisp of soul and transformed it into a complete saint soul. In this way, Xiao Sheng could use more power. With the help of Xiao Sheng's power, he might be able to compete with a half-saint expert. Seeing that Xiao Chun was so fearless, this half-saint expert shouted angrily, "You're courting death. Kneel down." The half-saint shouted angrily. At the same time, a terrifying pressure emanated from the half-saint expert and pressed toward Xiao Chun. A semi-saint had already comprehended the power of loss. Under the pressure of such might, Xiao Chun was naturally under great pressure. He wanted to use his pressure to force Xiao Chun to kneel down. However, just as this half-saint expert attacked, an equally terrifying aura sword from Xiao Chen's body and instantly broke through the half-saint expert's suppression. The aura that Xiao Chun emitted also contained a faint power of loss. Upon sensing the emergence of this aura, this half-saint expert's expression sank. "You? Who exactly are you?" Only a holy son or a saintess could possess such a terrifying aura. Therefore, this half-saint expert couldn't make up his mind. A holy son or a saintess was an existence that he couldn't afford to offend. Besides, if Xiao Chun was really a holy son or a saintess, his strength wouldn't be inferior to a half-saint expert like him. At the very least, it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape. Of course, this half-saint expert didn't know that this aura didn't actually come from Xiao Chun. Instead, it came from Xiao Sheng, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 837. Facing a half-saint expert, Xiao Chun didn't try to be brave. Instead, he caught Xiao Sheng's power. Feeling Xiao Chen's terrifying power, the half-saint expert frowned and hesitated for a moment. This half-saint expert planned to capture Xiao Chun directly and take him back to the Sun Saint sect for the other saints to deal with. However, facing Xiao Chun at this moment, he wasn't sure if he could successfully capture him. Of course, strength was one thing. Another thing was that he guessed Xiao Chen's identity. Being able to have such a cultivation at such a young age, Xiao Chun couldn't be an ordinary person. If Xiao Chun had some great background, then this half-saint expert would have to take the blame if he rashly injured Xiao Chun. These two reasons made this half-saint expert not dare to act rashly. Their eyes met. After a while, the half-saint expert took the initiative to restrain his aura and asked Xiao Chun, "You killed the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. You must come with me to the Sun Saint sect." He didn't intend to attack again, but he couldn't let Xiao Chun go either. After all, Xiao Chun had killed so many disciples of the Sun Saint sect, including Li Changle, the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. If he let Xiao Chun go, the Sun Saint sect would definitely punish him. Hearing this, Xiao Chun also retracted his aura and said faintly, "Okay, I'll go with you to the Sun Saint sect." He wasn't afraid of going to the Sun Saint sect at all. With that, Xiao Chun turned around and came to Xiao Qing and the others. He looked at Xiao Qing and said, "Father, come with me to the Sun Saint sect first. Then we'll go back." Xiao Chun said this very calmly. Hearing this, Xiao Qing naturally had no objection and immediately nodded. Xiao Chun was his son. Even if it was a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, Xiao Qing wouldn't shrink back at all. Seeing Xiao Qing nod, Xiao Chun looked at Qin Shu, Long Qing, and Chen Ling facing Xiao Chen's gaze. The three of them also nodded. They weren't afraid of going to the Sun Saint sect either. After greeting everyone, Xiao Chun entered Sky Fire City under the personal guard of the half-saint expert. Together with him were the corpses of Li Changle and the others. Xiao Chun was very calm about going to the Sun Saint sect. He wasn't afraid that the Sun Saint sect would dare to do anything to him. First of all, the three saint sects had formed an alliance. Moreover, it was Li Changle who sought his own death. In addition, Qin Shiru was the last disciple of Ice Lotus Prime Saint. As for Xiao Chun, although he wasn't Randang Kozai's disciple, Randang Kozai wouldn't sit by and do nothing. Therefore, if the Sun Saint sect wanted to make things difficult for him, it would be equivalent to offending both the Heavenly Saint sect and the Ancient Saint sect. As long as Heavenly Saint sect wasn't dim-sighted, he wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Therefore, Xiao Chun wasn't worried at all about the final result of the Sun Saint sect. There was a transmission formation that led directly to the Sun Saint sect from Sky Fire City. Without any delay, the group arrived at the Sun Saint sect under the guidance of the half-saint expert. The half-saint expert must have sent back the news in advance. Therefore, when Xiao Chun and the others arrived at the Sun Saint sect, a saint of the Sun Saint sect was already waiting for them. Perhaps it was because someone dared to kill the first prospective holy son of the Sun Saint sect. The saint didn't look good. At the same time, a faint killing intent constantly surrounded him. However, when he saw that it was Xiao Chun and the others who came out of the transmission formation, the saint was stunned at first. Then he looked at the half-saint expert and asked, "Are they the ones who killed Li Changle?" "Yes," the half-saint expert answered truthfully. Hearing this, the saint was depressed. He recognized Xiao Chun at a glance. Not only did he recognize Xiao Chun, but he also recognized Qin Shu. One of them was from the Ancient Saint sect, and the other was from the Heavenly Saint sect. Moreover, their identities weren't ordinary. To put it bluntly, they weren't inferior to the holy sons and holy daughters. If it was someone else who killed Li Changel, the saint would not hesitate to give the order to kill them. However, since it was Xiao Chun and the others who killed Li Changel, the matter was troublesome. As a saint, he naturally knew a lot of secrets. He was very clear about the consequences if he killed Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru. For a moment, he was in a dilemma. However, as a saint, he was also a shrewd person. He quickly came back to his senses and took the initiative to walk up to Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun, why did you kill Li Changel? Instead of directly attacking, he asked about the matter. Seeing this, the half-saint expert secretly rejoiced that he didn't choose to attack before. Seeing that the Lord Saint treated Xiao Chun with respect, it was obvious that this young man's identity wasn't simple. If Xiao Chun and the others didn't have an intimidating identity, the saint would have already attacked. However, now he actually asked about the matter with a pleasant expression. What did this prove? It proved that Xiao Chun and the others weren't simple people. In the face of a saint's inquiry, Xiao Chun truthfully told him what had happened. In the end, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "He deserved to die for insulting my father. Moreover, in my opinion, a person like Li Changel isn't worthy of being the prospective holy son of the Sun Saint sect. Leaving him alive would only bring shame to the Sun Saint sect." Until now, Xiao Chun didn't regret killing Li Changel. At the same time, he bluntly said that Li Changel wasn't worthy of being the prospective holy son at all. Hearing this, the saint's face darkened slightly. Although he knew that there were some problems with Li Changel's character and that he wasn't very useful, Li Changel's talent and battle strength were real. He was able to become the first prospective holy son of the Sun Saint sect by relying on his own strength. Now that Xiao Chun had insulted Li Changel, in the saint's opinion, it was almost equivalent to saying that there was no one left in the Sun Saint sect. This naturally made the saint unhappy. Therefore, after hearing Xiao Chun's words, the saint's face darkened, and he said angrily, "All right, I understand. All right, I already know what happened, but you can't leave the sacred Sun sect for the time being. I still need to ask Master about this and wait for him to make a decision himself." After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Chun to reply, the saint directly said to the half-saint experts at the side, "Take them away and treat them well." This was equivalent to directly putting Xiao Chun and the others under house arrest. Hearing this, Xiao Chun didn't resist and only said indifferently, "I believe that Prime Saint Tianyang can distinguish right from wrong." After saying that, he was led away by the half-saints of the Sun Saint sect. At the same time, the saint also disappeared in a flash. Obviously, he was going to report this matter to Prime Saint Tianyang. Just as Xiao Chun thought, the Sun Saint sect didn't dare to casually attack them. However, on the way, Qin Shiru was still a little worried and asked, "Husband, do you want me to inform Master? Please add me to your collection. Monthly vote. Recommend me." Chapter 838. Hearing Qin Shiru ask if he should inform his master, Ancient Saint Ice Lotus, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Sure, but I believe that Ancient Saint Heavenly Sun should know how to deal with it. Moreover, don't think too highly of the prospective Holy Sun. After all, he is not a Holy Sun. Sun Sacred Sect has no reason to offend both the Heavenly Saint Sect and the Ancient Saint Sect for a prospective Holy Sun, let alone someone like Li Changel." Xiao Chun didn't think that Ancient Saint Heavenly Sun would make a big fuss over someone like Li Changel. Perhaps Li Changel's talent was really good, but in Xiao Chun's opinion, Li Changel had no chance of becoming a holy son in this lifetime because of his character alone. To become a holy son, one not only needed great talent, but also a broad mind and broad vision. If all holy sons were like Li Changel, then it would be really bad. At least, among the holy sons that Xiao Chun had seen so far, none of them were narrow-minded, including the fourth holy son of Sun Sacred Sect, Juntong. Breadth of mind determined one's achievements, and breadth of vision determined one's height. This was what Xiao Chun had always believed. If one wanted to become a true powerhouse, talent alone was far from enough. This was also why those who could become quasi-saints in history, regardless of whether they were good or bad, were certainly not narrow-minded people. They were taken to a small courtyard. The environment was good, but the surroundings were closely monitored. Moreover, Xiao Chun and the others were not allowed to take half a step out of the courtyard. They were completely under house arrest. Xiao Chun didn't show the slightest resistance and calmly stayed in the courtyard. At the same time, in the depths of Sun's sacred sect, in the cave of ancient Saint Heavenly Sun, the previous saint also truthfully told ancient Saint Heavenly Sun what had happened. Just like Xiao Chun, ancient Saint Heavenly Sun didn't show the slightest anger after hearing the whole story. He just said indifferently, "I've already noticed Li Changle. I've been paying attention to this Li Changle for a long time. This child is not someone who can achieve great things. Even if he can temporarily become the first candidate, he will be defeated by others sooner or later. If he dies, then so be it." He wasn't angry about Li Changle's death at all. When he heard Prime Saint Tianyang's words, he stood aside respectfully. "But Master, no matter what, Li Changle is still the prospective holy son of our Sun Saint sect. He was killed just like that. Are we just going to let it go?" The saint's words were very obvious. Li Changle's death was nothing. This was also ancient Saint Tianyang's intention. However, this was related to the face of the Sun sacred sect. If they let Xiao Chun and the others go, what would the world think of the Sun sacred sect? For the sake of Sun Saint sect's face, he naturally couldn't let Xiao Chun go so easily. Hearing this, Prime Saint Tianyang smiled faintly and said, "How about this? Tell the Heavenly Saint sect and Ancient Saint sect to send people to pick them up. This way, the world won't say anything." They couldn't let Xiao Chun and the others go, but they could ask the Heavenly Saint sect and Ancient Saint sect to send people to pick them up. Moreover, the people sent had to be at least saints. This way, in the eyes of outsiders, it was equivalent to the Heavenly Saint sect and Ancient Saint sect giving an explanation, and the Sun sacred sect's face could be saved. Hearing this, the saint also felt that this method was the best and respectfully nodded. Yes. Sure enough, Prime Saint Tianyang didn't make a big fuss. Soon, the saint also conveyed this decision to Xiao Chun and the others. Hearing this, Qin Shiru looked at Xiao Chun with a puzzled expression. Because when he asked Xiao Chun if he should inform Prime Saint Bing Lian, Xiao Chun said that he could. Now, the Sun Sacred Sect actually gave such an answer. Everything seemed to be within Xiao Chun's expectations. Facing Qin Shiru's puzzlement, after the saint left, Xiao Chun said with a smile, "It's not strange. It's not strange. Think about it. It's not a secret that I killed Li Changle, but many people outside the Sky Fire City saw it. So this matter naturally can't be hidden. Since it can't be hidden and Sun Saint Sect has no intention of pursuing it, they naturally need a way out. These big sects all value face more than anything else." He had already guessed that the Sun Sacred Sect would ask the Heavenly Saint Sect and Ancient Saint Sect to send people to pick them up. So when Qin Shiru asked if he should inform Prime Saint Bing Lian, Xiao Chun didn't refuse. Not only Qin Shiru, but even Xiao Chun had already sent a message back to the Ancient Saint Sect. Presumably, the Ancient Saint Sect had already taken action. "Well, let's stay in the Sun Sacred Sect for 2 days. Don't worry," he said to Qin Shiru with a smile. He wasn't worried about what would happen next, and the Sun Sacred Sect indeed didn't make things difficult for Xiao Chun and the others. Except for forbidding them to leave the small courtyard, everything else was very good. Even the injuries on Xiao Qing's body were specially prepared by the Sun Sacred Sect for him to take. Xiao Qin hadn't seen Xiao Qing for a long time. In the next few days, it was rare for him to be by Xiao Qing's side. And from Xiao Qing's mouth, Xiao Qin also knew why he became Li Changle's slave. Originally, Xiao Qing was directly sent to the Sun Sacred Sect and then cultivated in the Sun Sacred Sect. Once, he heard that the 100,000 fire domain of the Sun Sacred Sect was a good place to gain experience. So, Xiao Qing came to Heavenly Flame City. But unexpectedly, Xiao Qing was intercepted by a group of roving bandits outside Heavenly Flame City. Fortunately, He was saved by Li Changle, who happened to pass by. He originally thought that Li Changle was a savior, but who would have thought that this Li Changle wasn't a good person at all? His ancestral home was in Heavenly Flame City, so he had his own family business in Heavenly Flame City. After saving Xiao Qing, Li Changle arranged for Xiao Qing to be a servant in Heavenly Flame City. Although he was called a servant, he was actually a slave. As long as Xiao Qing didn't do a good job, Li Changle would punch and kick him. Just like that, Xiao Qing stayed in Heavenly Flame City for 4 years. After knowing Xiao Qing's experience in these years, Xiao Qin also told Xiao Qing about the situation of his mother, Bai Riyue. Hearing that Bai Riyue had been arranged by Xiao Qin to stay in the Weiyue Empire of the ancient sacred state and wasn't in any danger, Xiao Qing was relieved. The days in the Sun's sacred sect were very peaceful. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiao Qin could also accompany his father. 2 days passed in a row. On this day, someone suddenly came to visit. The people who came were Yin Xiong and Zhao Hefeng, who were acquaintances of Xiao Qin. These 2 people could be considered old acquaintances of Xiao Qin. He didn't know where they heard the news that he was in the Sun's sacred sect, but the 2 of them came together. After taking a seat in the main hall, Xiao Qin took the initiative to cup his hands to Yin Xiong and said, "Senior brother Yin Xiong, brother Zhao, why are you here?" "Ha, we heard that junior brother Xiao is a guest in the Sun's sacred sect, so we naturally came. No matter what, we have to be a good host." Hearing Xiao Qin's words, Yin Xiong laughed loudly. Hearing this, Xiao Qin also smiled and replied, "Senior brother Yin Xiong must be joking. I'm not here as a guest. I'm under house arrest. Please collect, please vote, please recommend." Chapter 839. Yin Xiong and Zhao Hefeng took the initiative to visit. Hearing Xiao Qin's self-deprecating words, Yin Xiong waved his hand indifferently. "Junior brother Xiao, you don't need to care. In my opinion, Li Changle is just a piece of trash. He relied on his talent to become the first candidate, but it won't last long. Even if you don't kill him this time, he will soon be trampled by the other candidates. Even Zhao Hefeng is preparing to challenge Li Changle. If it weren't for the fact that he's not in the sect, the position of the first candidate would have already been taken by someone else." Yin Xiong clearly knew that Xiao Qin had killed Li Changle, but he didn't care about it at all. He didn't feel the slightest bit of regret for Li Changle's death. Xiao Qin even felt contempt from Yin Xiong's words. Yin Xiong was very straightforward and said what he thought. He didn't like Li Changle to begin with, so he didn't mince his words at all. Zhao Hefeng could only smile bitterly at Yin Xiong's words. Yin Xiong really didn't know what to say. After all, Li Changle was the candidate of the Sun Saint sect and was Yin Xiong's senior brother. But from Yin Xiong's words, it was as if Li Changle's death wasn't worth regretting. Even Xiao Qin didn't know how to respond to Yin Xiong's words. Yin Xiong wasn't stupid. He laughed and took the initiative to change the topic. "Haha, let's not talk about these annoying things. Junior brother Xiao, I've come to drink with you today. I'll let you taste the special wine of our Sun Saint sect." "That's great. Senior brother, please," Xiao Qin replied with a smile, and personally led Yin Xiong to the backyard. They sat down in the backyard. Xiao Qing, Chun Ling, Long Qing, Qin Shu, and the others were also present. They were the closest people to Xiao Qin. After introducing themselves, Yin Xiong straightforwardly took out the good wine he had collected for many years. There were actually 20 jars. These were the best wines in the Sun Saint sect. Without saying anything, everyone poured the wine and quickly drank. While Xiao Qin was drinking happily, on the other side, in the cave residence where Juntong lived, several disciples of the Sun Saint clan were standing respectfully in front of Juntong, crying and complaining about something. "Holy Sun, you have to uphold justice for senior brother Li. That Xiao Qin is currently in the sect." "That's right, Holy Sun. Senior brother Li is from the 4th Sacred Palace. Now that he's been killed, are we just going to swallow this humiliation?" These disciples were obviously begging Juntong to avenge Li Changle. Of course, these people were also Li Changle's henchmen. However, in the face of their cries, Juntong impatiently waved her hand and said, "Don't worry. His skills are not as good as his opponents. Even if he died, he would have died for nothing. Moreover, this Li Changle insulted his parents. If it were me, I would have killed him too. This matter ends here. Just listen to the arrangements of the sect. Don't mention this again. Juntong had no intention of avenging Li Changle at all. Hearing this, the disciples were stunned. Then, one of them said unwillingly, "Could it be that senior brotherly died in vain, just like that?" Holy Son, no matter how senior brotherly. However, before the disciple could finish, Juntong lightly snorted and said, "What? Didn't you hear what I said?" "Yes, we understand." Seeing that Juntong was a little angry, the disciples immediately bowed respectfully and didn't dare to say anything else. How could Juntong not know what these disciples were thinking when they bowed? They were Li Changle's henchmen, and they had done a lot of sneaky things behind Li Changle's back. Now, they wanted Juntong to make trouble for Xiao Chun out of selfishness. In Juntong's eyes, these guys were simply disgusting. How could the fourth sacred palace have such disciples? Waving her hand, she impatiently dismissed them. Seeing this, they retreated cautiously. But just as they were about to leave the hall, Juntong seemed to have thought of something and said indifferently, "I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking, but I'm telling you in advance, don't go looking for trouble with Xiao Chun, and don't make a fuss about it. If I find out who's behind this, you know the consequences." Hearing this, the disciples respectfully responded again and then left the hall. Looking at them leaving, Juntong's face still had a touch of anger. To be honest, Juntong didn't like Li Changle's character. But who asked Li Changle to be a member of the fourth sacred palace? Therefore, Juntong had told Li Changle more than once not to spend all his time scheming. Since he was a candidate, he had to show the magnanimity of a candidate. How could a person like him be worthy of being the candidate of the fourth sacred palace if he spent all his time thinking about how to harm others? But unfortunately, Li Changle didn't listen at all. Now he was killed by Xiao Chun. To put it bluntly, even Juntong, the candidate who had the closest relationship with Li Changle, felt that Li Changle deserved to die. Therefore, from the beginning to the end, Juntong didn't think of finding trouble with Xiao Chun, let alone revenge. Unaware of what happened on Juntong's side, Juntong looked at Xiao Chun again. Under the company of good wine, everyone quickly became familiar with each other. At this time, the most outspoken Yin Xiong didn't look like a candidate at all. He intimately hugged Xiao Chun's shoulder and said with a smile, "Haha, little junior brother, you really have good luck with women. You actually managed to find such a beautiful wife. Also, your second sister is like a fairy that has descended to the mortal world. Haha, I'm really envious." Yin Xiong kept praising Qin Shuru and Long Qing for their beauty. Of course, Yin Xiong's praise didn't have the slightest intention. It was just a simple compliment. He simply felt that the two girls were beautiful, nothing more. Therefore, after hearing Yin Xiong's words, Xiao Chun didn't feel disgusted. Even Qin Shuru and Long Qing didn't say anything. Instead, it was Zhao Huffing who kept trying to smooth things over. Looking at his expression, he seemed a little embarrassed. Finally, Yin Xiong changed the topic. Zhao Huffing looked at Xiao Chun and said, "Brother Xiao, it has been more than 4 years since we parted in the 100 Spirits realm, right?" "Yes, it has indeed been more than 4 years." Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded and replied, "Back then, we were still teammates who fought side by side. I heard that the ancient sage sect also opened the heritage inheritance. Brother Xiao should have also participated, right?" Zhao Huffing said, "Yes, I did." "Brother Zhao, didn't you do the same?" The two recalled what happened in the 100 Spirits realm. Now that they thought about it, it was as if it had happened yesterday. But in the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. And in these 4 years, Xiao Chun and Zhao Huffing had both changed a lot. Compared with 4 years ago, they were completely different. They had both received the heritage inheritance of their respective sage sects, and their cultivation and strength had far surpassed that of the past. Please collect, vote, recommend. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.